My wife was dressed to go home when her nurse stopped me outside room 412 and lowered her voice. "Mr. Keating, don't take her home tonight." I thought I had misheard her. Elaine had been in the hospital 4 days. She had fallen on the bottom 3 basement steps while carrying a basket of towels, cracked the left side of her pelvis, and bruised her shoulder badly enough that the first night she could barely lift her arm. Nothing required surgery. No stroke. No heart problem. No hidden cancer discovered by accident. Just the kind of fall that reminds you how quickly a normal Tuesday can become 4 days of plastic wristbands and cafeteria coffee. That morning, the hospitalist said Elaine could probably leave if physical therapy was satisfied with her walking. By 2:30, she had her jeans on. Her overnight bag sat zipped on the chair. I had already moved the loose rug from our hallway, put a shower chair in the downstairs bathroom, and borrowed a walker from our neighbor, because Elaine said the hospital one looked like it had been designed during the Eisenhower administration. So, when Nora Patel, the night shift nurse who had stayed late to finish paperwork, told me not to take my wife home, I assumed she knew about some medical result nobody had explained yet. "What happened?" Nora glanced toward Elaine's room. "She's stable." "Then why not home?" "I think you need to see something before discharge." She did not sound dramatic. That made me listen. I was 71 years old and had spent 34 years supervising maintenance at a food processing plant outside St. Louis. When somebody ran toward you yelling, there was usually smoke, steam, or blood involved. The dangerous conversations were quieter. A mechanic saying, "Tom, this bearing doesn't sound right." An electrician saying, "I want you to look at this before we energize it." Nora had that voice. "What?" She motioned toward the nurse's station. "Visitor records." I followed her. Elaine had given permission on admission for me to receive information about her care and coordinate discharge. So Nora was not showing me a list of everyone who entered the hospital. She pulled up only the visitor badge history associated with Elaine's room. I expected to see my name, our daughter Rachel, maybe our son Ben, who had driven up from Nashville for the first day and returned home Wednesday night. Nora turned the monitor slightly. "Look at the times." My name appeared too many times to count. I had been there every day from around 7 in the morning until 8 or 9 at night, except when I left for food, a shower, or to sleep. Then there was Rachel, Friday 6:12 a.m., out at 6:46, Friday 1:08 p.m., out at 1:41, Saturday 5:54 a.m., out at 6:27, Saturday 8:39 p.m., out at 9:16, Sunday 6:01 a.m., out at 6:34. I stared at the screen. "What is this?" Nora did not answer immediately. "Those are your daughter's visitor badges." "I can read." I pointed at Saturday morning. "I was here at 7:15. "I know." Rachel told me Friday afternoon she wasn't coming back until Sunday. Nora remained quiet. That was when I noticed something else. Every visit happened inside a window when I was gone. Friday at 6:12, I was home showering. Friday afternoon, I had driven to our house in Kirkwood to meet the plumber because one of the downstairs faucets had started dripping. Saturday morning, I arrived shortly after 7. Saturday night, I left at 8:20 because Elaine told me to go home and sleep. Sunday morning, same thing. I looked at Nora. "Why didn't I see her?" "She asked security not to call you when she came up." My stomach tightened. "Why?" "I can't answer that." "Did Elaine know she was here?" "Yes." That surprised me more than the visits. My wife and I had been married 46 years. Not one of those marriages where people claimed that they had no secrets. Elaine hid Christmas presents. I hid what I actually paid for tools. She once waited 11 days to tell me she had backed into the mailbox because she wanted to see whether I would notice it leaning. But 5 secret hospital visits from our daughter were different. "What happened during them?" Nora folded her arms. "I'm not comfortable characterizing private family conversations." "Then why are you showing me this?" "Because there's a pattern I think your discharge team needs to address." "What pattern?" Nora looked toward room 412. "Your wife's position about discharge changes after Rachel visits." I said nothing. "Thursday afternoon, your wife was willing to consider short-term rehabilitation if therapy recommended it." "Yes." "Friday morning, after your daughter left, she began asking whether you could force her into a nursing home." I frowned. "No one is forcing her anywhere. I understand." "Yesterday, the therapist mentioned rehabilitation because of the stairs." "I know," Nora continued. "Saturday morning, Elaine asked me whether going to rehab meant you could sell the house while she was gone." I stared at her. "What?" I told her no. Why would she ask that? That is one of the reasons I'm talking to you. She lowered her voice further. Last night, after Rachel left, your wife told me she needed to get home before you made it permanent. I felt something cold settle in my chest. Permanent what? She didn't say. I looked toward the room. Elaine was sitting on the edge of the bed in her blue sweater, probably wondering why it took two grown adults 10 minutes to discuss a wheelchair. She thinks I'm trying to put her in a nursing home. I think she is afraid that may be what you're planning. I am not. I didn't say you were. Nora touched the visitor list on the screen. I'm telling you somebody has been discussing it with her. Rachel, I didn't hear every conversation. Did you hear any? One pause too long. What? Nora exhaled. Yesterday morning I was outside the room when your daughter said, "You remember what happened to Grandma after they called it temporary?" I knew exactly which grandmother she meant. Elaine's mother, Dorothy. She had died 14 years earlier. For the last 8 months of her life, she lived in a nursing facility after a stroke. Elaine almost never talked about those months. Rachel did. My daughter had been 29 when Dorothy died. She visited her every Sunday. Once, she found a bruise on Dorothy's arm and made enough noise about it that the facility administrator personally called me. At the time, I thought Rachel was overreacting. Then, Dorothy fell. That part of our family history had never settled cleanly. What else did Rachel say? Nora shook her head. That is all I heard clearly. Did you report this? I documented Elaine's statements and asked the case manager to revisit the discharge plan. That was what a nurse should have done. Not solve our family, not choose for Elaine, make sure the decision was informed and safe. I looked at the visitor log again. 5 visits. 5 times my daughter deliberately came when I was not there. 5 times she left before I returned. I thanked Nora and went back into room 412. Elaine looked at me. Well? I closed the door. Not yet. Her face changed. What do you mean, not yet? I want therapy to come back. No. Elaine, I passed everything this morning. You walked to the hallway. I walked farther than our driveway. You didn't do the stairs? Her jaw tightened. I can use the downstairs bedroom. We don't have a downstairs bedroom. The den. That is not the same thing. Tom, there was fear in her voice. Not irritation. Fear. I sat beside her. What do you think is going to happen if you stay one more night? Nothing. Elaine. She looked away. Rachel thinks they'll keep adding reasons. Who? The doctors. For what? To send me somewhere. I kept my voice calm. Where? She did not answer. Did Rachel tell you I picked a nursing home? Elaine's eyes moved back to mine. That was enough. She said you had a list. I have a list. Her face tightened. The social worker gave it to me. That is what Rachel said. A list of rehabilitation facilities, nursing facilities. Skilled nursing facilities can provide short-term rehab. That does not mean permanent placement. Elaine looked unconvinced. That bothered me. Not because she disagreed, because somebody had already explained the same facts to her with a different conclusion. What exactly did Rachel tell you? She's worried. That is not what I asked. Elaine became defensive. She knows what happened with Mom. So do I. Do you? That one hurt. I let it. What did she tell you about me? My wife looked down at her hands. She said you already talked to Lakeview. I stared at her. Lakeview Rehabilitation was one of the facilities on the sheet the case manager gave me. I had circled it. Not because I had arranged anything, because it was 7 minutes from our house and had a rehabilitation gym. I called them, Elaine's eyes lifted, to ask whether they had a bed if you needed short-term therapy. Her expression changed exactly the way Rachel must have expected it to. So you did. I asked a question. You didn't tell me. That was true. I was trying to have information ready. For when you decided. No. Tom, you already decided I can't manage at home. I watched you nearly fall getting off the toilet yesterday. Her face flushed. I was dizzy. I know. You make everything sound worse when you want a plan. That sentence was familiar enough that I almost argued automatically. Elaine had said versions of it for 46 years. I liked plans. She preferred decisions after the world had finished changing. Did Rachel tell you to hide her visits from me? No. Did she tell you she was coming when I wasn't here? Elaine went quiet. Why? She didn't want another argument. With me? Yes? About your discharge? Yes, I sat back. 5 times? My wife's eyes widened. She had not expected me to know the number. Who told you? Nora showed me the visitor log. Elaine looked toward the door, then back at me. Tom, don't make this into something. I almost laughed. Not because it was funny, because somebody had apparently been making it into something for days. I'm not making anything yet. Rachel is trying to help. I believe she thinks she is. That answer unsettled Elaine more than if I had called our daughter a liar. I stood. I want one more night. No. One more physical therapy evaluation tomorrow morning. Then you decide. You decide? No. I leaned closer. You. She watched me carefully. If they say home is safe, we go home. And if they say rehab, then you hear what they actually recommend, why they recommend it, how long they expect it to last, and what home would require instead. And then, you decide. Elaine looked at me for a long time. Finally, one night. She leaned back against the pillows. I kissed her forehead and told her I would bring dinner that did not arrive under plastic. Then I stepped into the hallway and took out my phone. Rachel's name was near the top of my recent calls. I did not press it. Not yet. My first instinct was that our daughter was trying to keep her mother out of rehabilitation because of what happened to Dorothy. That almost made sense. What did not make sense was why she needed 5 secret visits to do it. Or why she told Elaine I had already made a decision I had not made. And the detail I kept coming back to was the one Nora had thought important enough to stay late and show me. Rachel had not simply visited her mother. She had carefully chosen times when she knew I would not be there. Whatever she was afraid would happen if Elaine went to rehabilitation, she was equally determined that I not hear how she was explaining it. Whatever she was afraid would happen if Elaine went to rehabilitation, she was equally determined that I not hear how she was explaining it. I left the hospital at 6:20 that evening and drove home with 2 bowls of chicken noodle soup from a place Elaine liked on Manchester Road. I told her I was getting dinner. That part was true. I did not tell her I needed 20 minutes alone with my own thoughts before I called our daughter. The house felt wrong without Elaine in it. Not lonely exactly, unfinished. Her reading glasses were still on the table beside the couch. A load of towels sat half folded in the laundry room because that was what she had been carrying when she fell. One of her gardening shoes was beside the back door, and the other had somehow migrated under a kitchen chair. Normal clutter. 4 days earlier, none of it meant anything. Now I found myself noticing every object that assumed she would come home. Elaine was 69. Until Tuesday, she still did most things she had done at 59. Gardened, drove herself, volunteered Wednesday mornings at the elementary school library, complained that I cut tomatoes too thick. Her biggest medical problem was blood pressure controlled by 1 pill and a right knee that predicted rain more accurately than local television. The fall frightened both of us. I handled fear by making lists. Elaine handled it by telling me to stop making lists. That difference had been present for most of our marriage. When our furnace failed in January of 1998, I had 3 replacement bids before breakfast the next morning. Elaine wanted space heaters and 24 hours to think. When I retired, I built a spreadsheet of household expenses for the next 10 years. She drew a line through half of it and wrote, "We are allowed to live." I kept that page. Not because she was always right, because sometimes I needed evidence that planning could become its own kind of foolishness. Rachel inherited my planning instinct with none of my appreciation for being teased about it. At 43, she worked as operations manager for a medical device distributor in Maryland Heights. She was the person who remembered everybody's dentist appointments, knew which cousin had a shellfish allergy, and once drove 40 miles back to a restaurant because the waiter had accidentally packed her father-in-law's medication bag with their leftovers. She loved hard. She also had trouble distinguishing responsibility from authority. That had caused arguments between us before. Never anything like this. Ben was 4 years younger and almost the opposite. He lived outside Nashville, sold commercial flooring, and considered most family problems temporary if no one texted him for 48 hours. When he flew in Tuesday night after Elaine fell, Rachel had already brought phone chargers, socks, a sweater, 3 kinds of lip balm, and a folder with her mother's insurance information. Ben brought barbecue. Elaine said both children had contributed according to their spiritual gifts. That was us. Not perfect, functional, until now. I checked my phone history. Friday morning, the hospital case manager had given me the rehabilitation list shortly before 10. My call to Lakeview was at 10:37 a.m., 6 minutes, that was all. I asked whether they had openings for short-term orthopedic rehabilitation, what Medicare typically covered, whether Elaine's physician would need to submit an order, and whether spouses could visit during therapy hours. I did not reserve a room. I did not fill out an application. I did not even give Elaine's date of birth. Rachel's first secret visit Friday was at 6:12 that morning, 4 hours and 25 minutes before I called Lakeview. I wrote both times on the back of an envelope. Old habit. At the plant, if a machine stopped at 2:15 and somebody claimed the strange noise started at 2:40, you did not need a theory yet. You needed to preserve the contradiction. Then I called Rachel. She answered immediately. "How's Mom?" "Still there." "What happened?" "Nothing new." A pause. "You sound strange." "I saw the visitor log." Silence, not confusion, recognition. "What visitor log?" "The one showing you came 5 times when I wasn't there." She exhaled. "Dad." "Why?" "Mom asked me to." That was different from what Elaine had said, not necessarily incompatible. "Asked you to come?" "Yes." "Asked you to come only when I was gone?" Another pause. She didn't want every conversation turning into an argument. "About rehabilitation." "Yes." "Why didn't she tell me?" "Because you were already pushing." I looked at the times on the envelope. "When did I start pushing?" "Come on, I'm asking." "You started talking about Lakeview." "When?" "Friday." "What time Friday?" Rachel went quiet. I waited. "Does that matter?" "Yes." "You called them before lunch." 10:37. "Fine. Your first visit was 6:12. Nothing." "So Lakeview wasn't why you came." "I didn't say it was the only reason. You just said I was already pushing because I was talking about Lakeview." "I said Mom was worried about what you were planning." "Before I planned it." "You always plan ahead." That was true enough to irritate me. "What did she think I was planning at 6 in the morning?" Rachel's tone changed, less defensive, more tired. "She thought you were going to send her somewhere." "Why?" "Because PT mentioned rehab Thursday. So a therapist mentioning rehab became me sending her away." "No." "Then what?" Rachel sighed. "Dad, you had already asked the social worker what happens if Mom can't manage the stairs." "Yes. That's what I mean. That is called asking what happens if she can't manage the stairs. With you, questions become plans fast." There it was, Elaine's complaint in Rachel's voice. I did not dismiss it. I also did not let it replace the timeline. "Did you tell your mother I had already chosen Lakeview?" "No." "She says you did." "I said you called them. You could not have said that Friday at 6:12. I saw her again Friday afternoon. That was true, 1:08, after my call. So what did you tell her Friday morning?" Rachel did not answer. "Rachel, that temporary rehab can turn into permanent placement." "Because of Dorothy." "Yes." I sat down. "What exactly did you say?" "I don't remember every word." "Try." "I told her to make sure she understood anything she agreed to." "Reasonable." "I told her not to let anybody rush her." "Also reasonable." "And I told her what happened to Grandma." There was the first piece that felt complete enough to believe. Dorothy's stroke had happened on a Sunday morning. Elaine's mother was 81. She lost movement on her right side, and enough speech that the first week she communicated mostly by squeezing hands and becoming furious when people guessed wrong. After the hospital, she went to a skilled nursing facility for rehabilitation. The original estimate was 3 weeks. She never returned to her apartment. Not because somebody signed one secret document, because recovery stalled. Then she developed pneumonia. Then she fell, transferring from bed to wheelchair. By the time she improved enough to discuss leaving, Elaine's brother had already begun clearing the apartment, because rent was becoming impossible on top of care expenses. Dorothy lived 8 more months. Elaine never forgave the sequence. She especially hated the phrase temporary rehabilitation. Rachel had been there for much of it. She visited every Sunday. She listened when Dorothy asked when she could go home. She watched adults answer with phrases like, "We'll see," "Let's get you stronger first," "One step at a time." The phrases were not lies. They simply became a life. "What happened to Dorothy was 14 years ago," I said. "That doesn't make it irrelevant." "No." "I saw Grandma begging to leave." "I know. You weren't there as much." That was true too. I was still working. Elaine spent more time with her mother than I did. Rachel spent more than either of us expected. She didn't understand why temporary kept getting extended, Rachel said. She had a stroke. She understood enough. I didn't say she didn't. Everybody kept deciding what was safest, because sometimes safest matters, and sometimes it becomes the answer to every question. I looked at the envelope. This was no longer a clean conversation. Rachel had a real fear built on something she had actually lived through. That did not explain the secrecy. Did Elaine ask you to come Friday morning? Yes. What time did she call? She texted around 5:30. Show me. What? Send me the text. A long pause. Dad? You said she asked you. She did. Then send it. Rachel became angry. I am not sending you private text from Mom so you can inspect whether she used the correct wording. That isn't why. That is exactly why. No, I'm trying to understand whether you decided she needed protecting and then told yourself she asked for it. Silence. Too much. I knew it the moment I said it. Rachel's voice went flat. Mom asked me to come. All right. You don't believe me. I believe something happened that I don't understand. That is not the same thing. No, I softened my voice. Send me nothing tonight. She was quiet. Then she said, You know what Mom said after Grandma died? What? She said if she ever got hurt and somebody started talking about just a little rehab, I was supposed to remind her how quickly people stop asking what the patient wants. I sat still. Elaine had never told me that. When did she say it? At Grandma's apartment, when we were clearing the kitchen. 14 years earlier. Was that a joke? No. Were you two alone? Yes. So you think you're keeping a promise? Rachel's voice cracked slightly. I think I'm making sure she doesn't disappear into a system because everybody is too practical to notice. That was the most honest thing she had said. And because it was honest, it scared me more than the lie about Lakeview. I'm not trying to put your mother anywhere permanently. I know you think that. That is a very specific way not to believe me. I believe you right now. I looked at the phone. What does that mean? It means things change. There was Dorothy again. 3 weeks becoming 8 months. A rehab plan becoming a permanent room. A family losing track of where one decision ended and another began. Rachel continued. If Mom goes somewhere and doesn't improve fast enough, the conversation changes. Then we have the conversation. Who does? All of us. No. Her answer was immediate. Mom does. I stopped. That was fair. Yes. Rachel was quiet. Then she said, That is all I'm trying to protect. I believe she believed that. After we hung up, I reheated the soup and returned to the hospital. Elaine ate half of hers, complained there was too much celery. That reassured me more than her blood pressure. At 8:15, I asked one question. Did you text Rachel at 5:30 Friday morning and ask her to come? Elaine stopped with the spoon halfway to her mouth. Yes? Why that early? I was awake. Why not call me? You had just left at 10 the night before. That doesn't answer it. She put the spoon down. I wanted to talk to Rachel. About rehab. Yes. Did you ask her to come when I wasn't here? Elaine looked toward the television, then back at me. Yes. That settled one part. Rachel had not invented the invitation. Why? My wife's answer came quietly. Because I knew you'd turn it into a decision before I knew what I wanted. That hurt. Mostly because it sounded possible. Then Elaine added something I had not expected. And because Rachel said there was something I needed to sign before you found out about it. I stared at her. What? Elaine immediately looked as if she regretted saying it. What did she bring you? Tom. What did you sign? She shook her head. I didn't. Not yet, I thought. Then hated myself for thinking it. What was it? Elaine looked at the closed hospital door. A healthcare form. What kind? She said it would make sure somebody listened to me if you and I disagreed. I did not need a maintenance log to understand that sentence. Rachel was not only trying to influence where her mother went after discharge. She had come into the hospital while I was gone, with paperwork designed to change who spoke for Elaine, when Elaine could no longer speak for herself. Whatever she was afraid would happen if Elaine went to rehabilitation, she was equally determined that I not hear how she was explaining it. I left the hospital at 6:20 that evening and drove home with 2 bowls of chicken noodle soup from a place Elaine liked on Manchester Road. I told her I was getting dinner. That part was true. I did not tell her I needed 20 minutes alone with my own thoughts before I called our daughter. The house felt wrong without Elaine in it. Not lonely exactly, unfinished. Her reading glasses were still on the table beside the couch. A load of towels sat half folded in the laundry room because that was what she had been carrying when she fell. One of her gardening shoes was beside the back door, and the other had somehow migrated under a kitchen chair. Normal clutter. 4 days earlier, none of it meant anything. Now I found myself noticing every object that assumed she would come home. Elaine was 69. Until Tuesday, she still did most things she had done at 59, gardened, drove herself, volunteered Wednesday mornings at the elementary school library, complained that I cut tomatoes too thick. Her biggest medical problem was blood pressure controlled by one pill and a right knee that predicted rain more accurately than local television. The fall frightened both of us. I handled fear by making lists. Elaine handled it by telling me to stop making lists. That difference had been present for most of our marriage. When our furnace failed in January of 1998, I had 3 replacement bids before breakfast the next morning. Elaine wanted space heaters and 24 hours to think. When I retired, I built a spreadsheet of household expenses for the next 10 years. She drew a line through half of it and wrote, "We are allowed to live." I kept that page, not because she was always right, because sometimes I needed evidence that planning could become its own kind of foolishness. Rachel inherited my planning instinct with none of my appreciation for being teased about it. At 43, she worked as operations manager for a medical device distributor in Maryland Heights. She was the person who remembered everybody's dentist appointments, knew which cousin had a shellfish allergy, and once drove 40 miles back to a restaurant because the waiter had accidentally packed her father-in-law's medication bag with their leftovers. She loved hard. She also had trouble distinguishing responsibility from authority. That had caused arguments between us before. Never anything like this. Ben was 4 years younger and almost the opposite. He lived outside Nashville, sold commercial flooring, and considered most family problems temporary if no one texted him for 48 hours. When he flew in Tuesday night after Elaine fell, Rachel had already brought phone chargers, socks, a sweater, 3 kinds of lip balm, and a folder with her mother's insurance information. Ben brought barbecue. Elaine said both children had contributed according to their spiritual gifts. That was us. Not perfect. Functional. Until now. I checked my phone history. Friday morning, the hospital case manager had given me the rehabilitation list shortly before 10. My call to Lakeview was at 10:37 a.m., 6 minutes. That was all. I asked whether they had openings for short-term orthopedic rehabilitation, what Medicare typically covered, whether Elaine's physician would need to submit an order, and whether spouses could visit during therapy hours. I did not reserve a room. I did not fill out an application. I did not even give Elaine's date of birth. Rachel's first secret visit Friday was at 6:12 that morning, 4 hours and 25 minutes before I called Lakeview. I wrote both times on the back of an envelope. Old habit. At the plant, if a machine stopped at 2:15 and somebody claimed the strange noise started at 2:40, you did not need a theory yet. You needed to preserve the contradiction. Then I called Rachel. She answered immediately. "How's Mom?" "Still there." "What happened?" "Nothing new." A pause. "You sound strange." "I saw the visitor log." Silence. Not confusion. Recognition. "What visitor log?" "The one showing you came 5 times when I wasn't there." She exhaled. "Dad." "Why?" "Mom asked me to." That was different from what Elaine had said, not necessarily incompatible. "Asked you to come?" "Yes." "Asked you to come only when I was gone?" Another pause. She didn't want every conversation turning into an argument. "About rehabilitation." "Yes." "Why didn't she tell me?" "Because you were already pushing." I looked at the times on the envelope. "When did I start pushing?" "Come on." "I'm asking." "You started talking about Lakeview." "When?" "Friday." "What time Friday?" Rachel went quiet. I waited. "Does that matter?" "Yes." "You called them before lunch." 10:37. "Fine." "Your first visit was 6:12. "Nothing." "So Lakeview wasn't why you came?" "I didn't say it was the only reason." "You just said I was already pushing because I was talking about Lakeview." "I said Mom was worried about what you were planning." "Before I planned it?" "You always plan ahead." That was true enough to irritate me. What did she think I was planning at 6 in the morning? Rachel's tone changed. Less defensive, more tired. "She thought you were going to send her somewhere." "Why?" "Because PT mentioned rehab Thursday." So a therapist mentioning rehab became me sending her away. No. Then what? Rachel sighed. Dad, you had already asked the social worker what happens if Mom can't manage the stairs. Yes, that's what I mean. That is called asking what happens if she can't manage the stairs. With you, questions become plans fast. There it was. Elaine's complaint in Rachel's voice. I did not dismiss it. I also did not let it replace the timeline. Did you tell your mother I had already chosen Lakeview? No. She says you did. I said you called them. You could not have said that Friday at 6:12. I saw her again Friday afternoon. That was true, 1:08, after my call. So what did you tell her Friday morning? Rachel did not answer. Rachel, that temporary rehab can turn into permanent placement. Because of Dorothy. Yes, I sat down. What exactly did you say? I don't remember every word. Try. I told her to make sure she understood anything she agreed to. Reasonable? I told her not to let anybody rush her. Also reasonable. And I told her what happened to Grandma. There was the first piece that felt complete enough to believe. Dorothy's stroke had happened on a Sunday morning. Elaine's mother was 81. She lost movement on her right side, and enough speech that the first week she communicated mostly by squeezing hands and becoming furious when people guessed wrong. After the hospital, she went to a skilled nursing facility for rehabilitation. The original estimate was 3 weeks. She never returned to her apartment. Not because somebody signed one secret document, because recovery stalled, then she developed pneumonia, then she fell transferring from bed to wheelchair. By the time she improved enough to discuss leaving, Elaine's brother had already begun clearing the apartment because rent was becoming impossible on top of care expenses. Dorothy lived 8 more months. Elaine never forgave the sequence. She especially hated the phrase temporary rehabilitation. Rachel had been there for much of it. She visited every Sunday. She listened when Dorothy asked when she could go home. She watched adults answer with phrases like, "We'll see," "Let's get you stronger first," "One step at a time." The phrases were not lies. They simply became a life. What happened to Dorothy was 14 years ago, I said. That doesn't make it irrelevant. No. I saw Grandma begging to leave. I know. You weren't there as much. That was true too. I was still working. Elaine spent more time with her mother than I did. Rachel spent more than either of us expected. She didn't understand why temporary kept getting extended, Rachel said. She had a stroke. She understood enough. I didn't say she didn't. Everybody kept deciding what was safest. Because sometimes safest matters. And sometimes it becomes the answer to every question. I looked at the envelope. This was no longer a clean conversation. Rachel had a real fear built on something she had actually lived through. That did not explain the secrecy. Did Elaine ask you to come Friday morning? Yes. What time did she call? She texted around 5:30. Show me. What? Send me the text. A long pause. Dad, you said she asked you. She did. Then send it. Rachel became angry. I am not sending you private texts from Mom so you can inspect whether she used the correct wording. That isn't why. That is exactly why. No, I'm trying to understand whether you decided she needed protecting and then told yourself she asked for it. Silence. Too much. I knew it the moment I said it. Rachel's voice went flat. Mom asked me to come. All right. You don't believe me. I believe something happened that I don't understand. That is not the same thing. No. I softened my voice. Send me nothing tonight. She was quiet. Then she said, You know what Mom said after Grandma died? What? She said if she ever got hurt and somebody started talking about just a little rehab, I was supposed to remind her how quickly people stop asking what the patient wants. I sat still. Elaine had never told me that. When did she say it? At Grandma's apartment, when we were clearing the kitchen. 14 years earlier. Was that a joke? No. Were you two alone? Yes. So you think you're keeping a promise? Rachel's voice cracked slightly. I think I'm making sure she doesn't disappear into a system because everybody is too practical to notice. That was the most honest thing she had said. And because it was honest, it scared me more than the lie about Lakeview. I'm not trying to put your mother anywhere permanently. I know you think that. That is a very specific way not to believe me. I believe you right now. I looked at the phone. What does that mean? It means things change. There was Dorothy again. 3 weeks becoming 8 months, a rehab plan becoming a permanent room, a family losing track of where one decision ended and another began. Rachel continued, "If Mom goes somewhere and doesn't improve fast enough, the conversation changes. Then we have the conversation. Who does? All of us." "No." Her answer was immediate. "Mom does." I stopped. That was fair. "Yes." Rachel was quiet. Then she said, "That is all I'm trying to protect." I believe she believed that. After we hung up, I reheated the soup and returned to the hospital. Elaine ate half of hers, complained there was too much celery. That reassured me more than her blood pressure. At 8:15, I asked one question. "Did you text Rachel at 5:30 Friday morning and ask her to come?" Elaine stopped with the spoon halfway to her mouth. "Yes." "Why that early?" "I was awake. Why not call me? You had just left at 10 the night before. That doesn't answer it." She put the spoon down. "I wanted to talk to Rachel. About rehab." "Yes." "Did you ask her to come when I wasn't here?" Elaine looked toward the television, then back at me. "Yes." That settled one part. Rachel had not invented the invitation. "Why?" My wife's answer came quietly. "Because I knew you'd turn it into a decision before I knew what I wanted." That hurt. Mostly because it sounded possible. Then Elaine added something I had not expected. "And because Rachel said there was something I needed to sign before you found out about it." I stared at her. "What?" Elaine immediately looked as if she regretted saying it. "What did she bring you?" "Tom." "What did you sign?" She shook her head. "I didn't." Not yet, I thought, then hated myself for thinking it. "What was it?" Elaine looked at the closed hospital door. "A healthcare form." "What kind?" "She said it would make sure somebody listened to me if you and I disagreed." I did not need a maintenance log to understand that sentence. Rachel was not only trying to influence where her mother went after discharge. She had come into the hospital while I was gone with paperwork designed to change who spoke for Elaine, when Elaine could no longer speak for herself. I did not ask Elaine to explain the form immediately. That took more restraint than it sounds like. For most of our marriage, if I discovered a problem at 9 o'clock, Elaine could count on me wanting 3 answers by 9:15. What happened? Why it happened? How we were going to prevent it from happening again. She once told me living with me was like being married to a maintenance manual with blood pressure. That night, I let her finish the soup. Then I asked, "Do you still have the paperwork?" "No." "Rachel took it?" "Yes." "Why?" I told her I wanted to think. That helped. "What did the top say?" Elaine closed her eyes. Something about durable power of attorney for healthcare. I knew exactly what that was. We already had one. Years earlier, after Dorothy's stroke, Elaine and I met with an estate attorney and signed wills, financial powers of attorney, and healthcare directives. Mine named Elaine first, Ben second. Elaine's named me first, Rachel second. The idea was simple enough. If Elaine could speak for herself, Elaine decided. If she could not, I spoke for her. If I could not, Rachel did. "Why do you need another one?" Elaine looked down. "Rachel said the old one puts you in charge. Only if you can't make your own decisions." "I know." "Did she tell you differently?" "No." That answer came fast. I believed it. "What did the new one change?" "She wanted me to name her first." There it was. Not a misunderstanding, not a general form about patient rights. My daughter had brought a document into my wife's hospital room that would move me from the first person authorized to speak for Elaine to somewhere else. Who was second? Ben. And me? Elaine hesitated. "I think you were listed after him." Third. After 46 years of marriage, I had apparently fallen 2 positions without knowing there was an election. I felt the anger come up. Then I looked at Elaine's face. She was frightened enough already. "What did you think?" "I didn't like it." "Then why didn't you tell her no?" "I did." "Completely?" "No." That was Elaine. If she said no completely, she meant no. If she said no, and then somebody kept talking, the conversation could live another 6 months. What did she say? That it didn't change anything while I could still speak for myself. That part is true. She said it would only matter if I couldn't. Also true. And she said if something happened during rehab, she didn't want every decision automatically going through you. I waited. "What decisions?" "Transfer, longer stay, assisted living." My jaw tightened. Did she say I was planning assisted living? No. Did she imply it? Elaine looked at me. Yes. There was the word that would matter later, not said, implied. How? She said you think in steps. I do. She said you'd say rehab was one step. Then if I wasn't ready to come home, another place would be the next practical step. I sat back. Did that sound believable to you? Elaine did not answer. That hurt more than if she had accused me. Finally, she said, it sounded like something you could do without meaning to. I looked away. There are accusations you can reject because they describe a person you have never been. This one was harder. I did think in steps. If a roof leaked, I did not debate whether the house deserved rain. I found the leak, stopped the water, dried the structure, repaired the damage, prevented recurrence. People are not roofs. I knew that. Knowing something in principle does not mean you always behave like you know it. Did Rachel ask anyone here to witness the form? Elaine looked surprised. Yes. Who? She asked Nora whether the hospital had a notary. My stomach tightened. What did Nora say? That they did, but she wanted the case manager to talk to me first. That explained more of the warning in the hallway. Nora had not simply heard a troubling conversation. She had seen my daughter trying to formalize it. Did the case manager talk to you? This morning? What did you tell her? That I wasn't signing anything today. Good. Did Rachel know that? Yes. What did she say? That was fine. That was important too. Rachel had not threatened, had not forced a pen into her mother's hand. Whatever she was doing, she apparently still believed she was protecting choice. The problem was, she had already been shaping the facts around the choice. At 9, I told Elaine I was going home. You're not angry? I am. With me? I thought about it. Yes. She looked hurt. I'm also angry with myself, Rachel, skilled nursing facilities, stairs, and whoever designed hospital chairs. That almost got a smile. Then I said, I'm not going to make you defend a document you didn't sign. I didn't ask her to change it. Good. Elaine looked away. I noticed the wording. Didn't ask her to change it. Didn't discuss changing it. I left that alone. For now. The next morning I returned at 7:30 and asked to speak with the case manager before physical therapy arrived. Her name was Denise Walker, mid-50s, reading glasses hanging from a cord. The kind of woman who could listen to 3 people disagree without looking tempted to join any of them. We met in a small consultation room across from the nurse's station. I want to understand the discharge process, I said. Good. And the power of attorney issue. Her expression changed slightly. Elaine told you. Yes. Okay. Is she capable of making her own medical decisions? Yes. No hesitation. Any concern about cognition? Not from our evaluations. Then whether I'm agent, Rachel is agent, or the mailman is agent doesn't matter today. Denise almost smiled. Correct. If Elaine says home, can she go home? If the physician discharges her, and she understands the risks, she can choose home. We can recommend rehabilitation. We cannot imprison a competent adult in a facility. Good. If home is unsafe, we explain why and what supports could reduce the risk. What did therapy recommend? Yesterday, short-term rehab was their preferred recommendation because of transfers and stairs. Preferred? Yes. Required? No. What would make home realistic? First floor setup, walker, supervision initially, home health therapy, safe bathroom access, medication management, and someone available if she needs help overnight. That sounded like a plan, which meant I immediately liked it. I noticed that about myself. Did Rachel speak with you? Yes. When? Several times. About the power of attorney? Once directly. What did she ask? Denise chose her words. She asked whether an existing healthcare agent could be changed during hospitalization. And I told her a competent patient may revise an advance directive, but we prefer to speak with the patient alone if there is any concern about pressure. Was there? Nora was uncomfortable with the timing. Because Rachel came when I wasn't here. That was one factor. What else? Denise folded her hands. Your daughter contacted discharge planning Friday morning, before my Lakeview call. What did she say? She said Elaine did not consent to facility placement. I stared at her. Had Elaine told your team that yet? Not in those words. So Rachel spoke for her. Yes. When? Approximately 6:45, right after the first secret visit. What else? She asked us to prioritize home health options. That sounds reasonable. It can be. I waited. She also asked that no facility referral be sent without calling her first. I leaned back. Why her? She said she was helping her mother make sure the discharge plan reflected her wishes. Did she say she was the healthcare agent? No. Did she say I was? She knew you were listed on the current directive. That stopped me. How? It's in the chart. Did she ask? Yes. When? Friday. What exactly? Denise hesitated, then said, she asked whether a spouse automatically controls discharge decisions. And you told her? The patient controls them while capable. Then? She asked what happens if the patient becomes temporarily unable to decide. And? I explained we use the current valid directive, which named me. What did she say? She asked how quickly a new directive becomes effective after signing. There it was. Not proof of some scheme, but a sequence. 6:12, secret visit. 6:45, Rachel tells discharge planning. Elaine does not consent to facility placement. Later that morning, she confirms I am primary agent, then asks how to replace an existing directive. By afternoon, she is back in the room with paperwork. I thanked Denise. Before I left, she said, Mr. Keating, yes? Your daughter is not the only family member who is frightened. I know. I mean Elaine. I looked at her. She has repeatedly said she is afraid people will decide she cannot go home. That came from Rachel. Maybe partly. Denise's voice remained even. But fear does not become unreal because somebody influenced it. I did not like that sentence. I respected it. Physical therapy arrived at 9. They had Elaine stand from the bed without using her arms. She managed it, barely. Walked 80 feet with the walker. Rested. Then they brought a portable practice step. She got up 1 step. Coming down, her injured side weakened. The therapist caught her elbow. Elaine swore. That was a positive neurological sign, in my opinion. The therapist smiled, then said, This is why I'm worried about the stairs. We can avoid them, I said. Elaine looked at me. I stopped. The therapist asked her, not me. Mrs. Keating, what do you want? Home? What are you willing to accept at home? Elaine thought. Walker, therapy, shower chair. Someone with you? She looked at me. For a while? Sleeping downstairs? If he stops calling the den not a bedroom. I raised my hands. The therapist laughed, then said they would reassess the next morning. No discharge that day, no crisis either. I went home at lunch and opened our fireproof document box. Elaine's advance directive was exactly where I remembered. Signed 8 years earlier. Thomas Keating, primary healthcare agent. Rachel Keating Foster, alternate. There was a handwritten note clipped behind it in Elaine's writing. If we ever revise these, talk to both kids first. No surprises. I sat there longer than I expected. No surprises. Apparently we had failed that part. I called our estate attorney, Laura Mendel. She had prepared the original documents. When I asked whether Rachel had contacted her about changing Elaine's directive, Laura said no. Could she use another form? Of course. Would you recommend it? If Elaine wants to revise her directive, I'd recommend she do it after an independent conversation with counsel or hospital staff. Not because Rachel is necessarily doing anything improper, because family pressure and patient preference can look very similar from the outside. That was useful. Then I called Ben. He answered from his truck. Mom okay? Improving. I asked him one question. Did Rachel ever talk to you about changing Mom's healthcare power of attorney? Silence. That was enough. When? Couple weeks ago. Before the fall, my working theory changed immediately. What did she say? That Mom might want to update it. Did she say Mom asked? I assumed Mom had. That is not what I asked. Ben sighed. She said Dad gets too focused on the safest option in a crisis. I stared at Elaine's old directive, and she asked if you'd be willing to be alternate. Yeah. Did you agree? I said sure. Did she tell you I'd be moved behind both of you? Another pause. No. Did she tell you why she was doing this before Mom fell? Not really. Then Ben said something that kept the theory from becoming too clean. She did say Grandma had brought it up. I frowned. Your mother? Yes. When? I don't know. Rachel said Mom had been thinking about changing who makes decisions if she can't. I looked at the handwritten note. No surprises. Rachel had started this before the hospital. The fall had not created the plan. It had only made the plan urgent. By then I had a reasonable explanation for the secret visits. My daughter believed the old healthcare directive gave me too much control if Elaine became temporarily unable to speak. She believed Dorothy's story proved how quickly temporary rehabilitation could become permanent. So, she had spent at least 2 weeks preparing to replace me as Elaine's first medical decision-maker. The only question I could not answer was the one I had avoided asking Elaine directly. Had Rachel decided that on her own? Or had my wife of 46 years quietly decided she no longer trusted me with the job? I got the answer before lunch. Not the one I expected. Elaine was sitting in the recliner beside her hospital bed when I returned, doing ankle exercises the physical therapist had given her. 10 repetitions. Pause. 10 more. She took physical therapy seriously when nobody called it exercise. I put the fireproof box copy of her advance directive on the tray table. She looked at it, then at me. You went home and dug through paperwork. Yes. Of course you did. I spoke to Ben too. Her expression changed. What did Ben say? That Rachel asked him weeks ago whether he would be willing to serve as your alternate healthcare agent. Elaine stopped moving her foot. He wasn't supposed to be dragged into this yet. That answered part of my question. So, there was a this. She looked toward the window. Tom, did you ask Rachel to help you change this? I touched the old directive. Elaine hesitated. Yes. The word landed harder than it should have. I had spent the drive back preparing myself for Rachel acting alone. Instead, my wife had just removed that explanation. How long? A few weeks. Before you fell. Yes. Why didn't you tell me? She looked irritated now. Because I wanted to understand what I wanted before you explained why it was impractical. That was not fair, at least not completely. What did you want changed? I don't know yet. You asked Rachel to change a document without knowing what you wanted changed? I asked her to find information. That is different. Yes. Did you ask her to make herself primary agent? No. There. The second answer mattered more than the first. What did you ask? Elaine shifted carefully in the chair. I wanted something more specific. Specific how? She glanced at the old directive. That thing says practically nothing about what I actually want. It was a standard advance directive. Names, signatures, general authority, a few broad treatment preferences. We had signed it 8 years earlier because Laura Mendel told us everyone should have one, and because Dorothy's stroke had shown us what happened when nobody had instructions. At the time, Elaine had been healthy. So had I. We signed the forms the same way people replace smoke detector batteries. Important, responsible, not especially personal. What did you want added? Elaine counted on her fingers. If I can safely be cared for at home, I want home. Reasonable. If I need short-term rehab, I want someone to tell me what short-term means. Also reasonable. If I can make decisions, nobody makes them for me. That is already the law. She stared at me. That sentence is exactly why I didn't start with you. I stopped. What? I say what I want written down, and you tell me it's already the law. Because it is. I know. She leaned back. But I wanted it in my paper anyway. That was fair. I said nothing. Elaine continued. I wanted language saying one bad day doesn't mean somebody gets to decide I can't live at home. Nobody can. She raised one eyebrow. I closed my mouth. That was probably growth. What else? No permanent nursing home placement unless there's a real reason. What does real reason mean? I don't know. Then it needs defining. There. What? That. She pointed at me. I cannot say one sentence about being afraid without you turning it into wording. I felt my jaw tighten, then made myself relax it. Fine. Thank you. Why Rachel? Because she listened first. That hurt. Not enough to make me angry. Enough to make me quiet. When did this start? Elaine thought. After our anniversary dinner. 3 weeks earlier. We had gone to an Italian restaurant in Webster Groves. Good meal, terrible parking. What happened? On the way home, we were talking about Carol Mason. I remembered, our neighbor 2 houses down. Carol was 76 and had recently moved to assisted living after a second fall. Her daughter arranged the move. Carol agreed eventually, but not before telling half the neighborhood she had been kidnapped by women with matching SUVs. You said her daughter waited too long, Elaine said. I did. You said after the first fall they should have insisted. Carol broke her wrist on the second one. I know. And she lives alone. I know. What does that have to do with you? Elaine looked at me as if I were being deliberately dense. Tom, I had already fallen twice in the garden this year. Once you tripped over the hose. That is still a fall. The other time you sat down hard, in the mulch. You were pulling weeds. I fell. I did not argue further. You heard me say they should have insisted with Carol and thought I would insist with you. Yes. That is why you wanted to change the directive? Partly. What was the other part? Elaine looked away. Dorothy? Of course. Rachel brought her up? Not then. You did. Yes. She rubbed the edge of the blanket with her thumb. I kept thinking about Mom's last year. I know. No. She looked at me. You know what happened. You don't know what I was afraid of. I waited. That once everybody started deciding what was safest, what she wanted became the least important piece of information in the room. I thought of Denise Walker. Fear did not become unreal because somebody influenced it. What did you ask Rachel to do? Find out whether we could add instructions. Just instructions? Yes. Keep me as primary agent? Elaine became quiet. That silence hurt. I don't know. I sat back. Elaine, I said I don't know. You have had 46 years to know whether you trust me. That is not the question? It feels like it. She looked at me. I trust you to take care of me. Then? I'm not always sure you trust me to decide what taking care of me looks like. There are sentences that sound small until they find the exact weak point in a marriage. That one did. I looked at the old directive. Did you tell Rachel that? Yes. What did she say? That she understood. And then she drafted something naming herself first. Yes. Did you ask for that? No. Did she tell you before bringing it? Not exactly. That phrase again. What did she say? She said she found a form that would give me another option. What option? To have somebody else speak if you and I disagreed. I frowned. That isn't how a healthcare agent works while you are competent. I know that now. Who told you? Denise. I stood and walked toward the window. So Rachel either misunderstood the document or described it badly. Yes. Which? I don't know. That mattered. I could not yet turn poor explanation into manipulation. But the pattern was becoming clearer. Elaine had raised a real concern. Rachel had taken that concern and moved farther than Elaine had asked. How many times did you talk about this before the fall? Maybe 3. With Rachel? Yes. Did you ever tell Ben? No. Laura Mendel? No. Me? Elaine's expression answered that. No. I looked at her. Why not talk to the attorney who wrote the document? Because I was thinking. You could think with me. She almost laughed. Tom, you do not think with people. You arrive with a recommendation. That irritated me because I recognized it. At the plant, people did not pay me to explore my feelings about a failed gearbox. They paid me to decide whether production could restart. I had spent 3 decades being rewarded for turning uncertainty into action. Retirement had removed the paycheck, not the habit. I sat again. Did Rachel pressure you before the fall? Elaine thought. No. That weakened my theory even further. She suggested things? Yes. Such as making herself primary. Yes. Did she push? Not then. Then when? This week. There it was. What changed? My fall. Specifically? She said this was exactly the kind of situation we had talked about. What situation? Me being vulnerable and you making plans? I felt myself getting defensive. I moved rugs. Tom, I bought a shower chair. I know. I called one rehabilitation facility. And didn't tell me. That was my mistake. I had treated gathering information as neutral. To me it was. To Elaine, discovering that I had called Lakeview before asking whether she wanted rehabilitation made Rachel's warning sound more credible. I should have told you. Elaine looked at me. I said it again. I should have told you before I called. She softened slightly. I know you were trying to help. That doesn't fix it. No. I understood then why Rachel's words had landed so easily. She did not need to invent a controlling husband. She only needed to point at things I had actually done and assign them the most frightening possible meaning. I asked, what happened during the secret visits? Elaine looked tired. Different things. Friday morning. She brought coffee. Of course. Decaf. Then she is the villain. That got a small smile. What did you talk about? Mom? Dorothy? Yes. What did Rachel say? Elaine's expression changed. She reminded me how the rehab was supposed to be 3 weeks. That is true. How everyone said not to worry about the apartment yet. Also true. How after the stroke, Mom kept saying she wanted to go home. Yes. And how nobody wanted to be the person who took the risk. I waited. Then, Rachel said if I went to rehab, I needed someone whose first instinct wasn't always safety. That one was aimed directly at me. Her. She didn't say her. What did she say? That I should pick somebody who could tolerate risk? I almost laughed. Rachel color codes emergency contacts. Elaine smiled despite herself. I know. So she thinks she tolerates risk better than I do? Apparently. What happened Friday afternoon? That's when she told me you called Lakeview. And brought the form? Yes. Saturday morning? She came back because I was upset. About me? About everything. Did she ask you to sign? Yes. Did you? No. Why? Elaine looked directly at me. Because if I'm changing who speaks for me, I want to know why I'm doing it. Good. What did Rachel say? That waiting until a crisis means it's too late. Technically true. I know. Did that make you more afraid? Yes. There was no use pretending otherwise. By Sunday, Rachel had stopped merely responding to Elaine's concern. She was reinforcing it. The original theory had been simple. My daughter wanted to remove me because she thought I would put Elaine in a facility. That was incomplete. Elaine herself had opened the question weeks earlier. She had doubts about me. Real ones. My secrecy about Lakeview had strengthened them. Rachel had not created the crack. She had found one and started widening it. At 11:30, Ben called me back. I remembered something. What? When Rachel asked about Mom's directive, she sent me a picture. My attention sharpened. Of what? Not the new form. Notes. Whose notes? Mom's, I think. Send it. 30 seconds later, the image arrived. Yellow legal pad. Elaine's handwriting. At the top, if I can't speak underneath, were 5 numbered items. Home, if realistically possible. Rehab only with clear goals. Review date. Do not sell house or move belongings while I am away. Tom should hear what doctors actually say. Not only worst-case version. Rachel should not let Tom scare himself into deciding for both of us. I read number 5 twice. It hurt. Then I noticed the lower corner of the photograph. A 6th line had been cut off by the framing. Only the first words were visible. Rachel gets 2. I enlarged the image. Nothing more. Ben? Yeah? Do you have the full page? That's all she sent. Ask Rachel? I'd rather not get killed before lunch. I barely heard him. Elaine's notes proved the concern was hers. They also proved something else. She had not been writing a document about replacing me. She had been writing instructions for how I should behave. And below the line, warning Rachel not to let me decide for both of us, was another warning about Rachel herself. Whatever the missing sentence said, my wife had apparently understood both of us better than either of us had understood the problem. The question was, why Rachel had sent Ben a photograph that stopped just before that part. I did not ask Rachel about the cropped photograph. Not yet. I went back to Elaine. She was finishing lunch when I arrived, which meant she had eaten the pudding first and was pretending the empty cup had nothing to do with her. I put Ben's photograph on the tray table. Recognize this? She squinted at it. But my handwriting. Where's the page? At home? Where? Blue notebook in my desk. You took notes before the fall. Yes. Rachel photographed them. I know. I enlarged the image and pointed to the bottom. What does number 6 say? Elaine stared at the screen, then she looked at me. You're going to make too much of it. That depends entirely on what it says. She sighed. Rachel gets too scared. Too scared of what? Becoming grandma. I waited. That's the whole sentence? No. Elaine. She rubbed her forehead. It says, Rachel gets too scared about what happened to Mom and starts deciding before I do. I sat down. That was not a small omission. Anything after that? Yes. What? Do not make her the only voice either. I looked at the photograph again. The crop stopped just above the line that directly contradicted the idea Rachel had presented to Ben. Did Rachel see the complete page? Yes. Did she know you wrote that? Yes. Did you discuss it? Elaine's expression tightened. She didn't like it. What did she say? That I was comparing her to you. I'm not sure whether to be offended. You should both be. Under different circumstances, I would have enjoyed that. What did she think you meant? That I trusted neither of you. Do you? That isn't what I wrote. I looked at my wife. She continued, I trust both of you. I don't trust either of you alone when you're frightened. That silenced me. Not because I agreed completely, because it was probably the clearest description of the problem anyone had given me. What does Ben have to do with this? I thought maybe he should be involved. As agent? I didn't know. Rachel asked him. I know that now. She told him you might change the directive. I told her I was considering changes. Did you authorize her to recruit him? No. That was another line crossed. What exactly did you ask Rachel to do? Find out what options existed. No documents? Not at first. No conversations with the hospital? There was no hospital yet. Right. I stopped myself. The fall had made a 3-week-old conversation urgent. It had not invented it. Did you ask her to photograph these notes for Ben? No. Did you know she had? No. Elaine looked at the cropped image again. That bothers me. Good. Don't sound pleased. I'm not. I was. A little. Not because I wanted Elaine angry with our daughter. Because for several days, I had wondered whether I was inventing manipulation. Because my pride had been injured. The crop was concrete. Rachel had taken something Elaine wrote, removed the sentence warning against Rachel having sole authority, and sent the remaining page to Ben while asking whether he would participate in a new arrangement. That did not make her evil. It made the information incomplete on purpose. I went home at 3 and found the blue notebook exactly where Elaine said it would be. Top drawer. Under a stack of birthday cards she apparently planned to keep until our children were eligible for Social Security. The yellow page was still attached, all 6 items. Under number 6, Elaine had added another line in smaller handwriting. Maybe nobody should have full discretion over permanent placement without someone else checking the facts. Ask Laura. Laura Mendel, our attorney. Not Rachel, not Ben. Me, presumably, but with another set of eyes. I photographed the full page. Then I checked the notebook pages before and after it. Not snooping, context. The previous page contained questions. What counts as unable to decide? Can agent override what I wrote? Can I require second opinion before long-term facility? What happens if Tom and kids disagree? The next page was simpler. Rachel thinks new POA. I think written instructions may be enough. That sentence changed the situation again. Elaine had not decided to replace me. She had specifically questioned whether replacement was necessary. Rachel knew that too. I called Laura Mendel. Can an advance directive include instructions about long-term care preferences? Yes. Can someone require a second medical opinion before permanent nursing placement? It depends how it's drafted and what circumstances exist, but a directive can express strong preferences and guidance. Could Elaine keep me as agent while adding those? Absolutely. So replacing me was never the only option? No. Did Rachel know that? I have no idea. I looked at Elaine's notebook. She had these questions. Then Elaine was asking the right ones. That sounded like Laura. What should she do now? Not decide in the middle of a family fight? Excellent advice approximately 3 days late. It's still advice. I thanked her. Then I called Rachel. This time I did not start with the visitor log, or Lakeview, or the power of attorney form. I texted her the full photograph. 30 seconds later, she called. Where did you get that? Elaine's notebook. Silence. You cropped it. Another silence. Yes. Why? I wasn't trying to hide anything. That was such an obvious bad answer that I let it sit by itself. Rachel heard it too. Okay, I waited. I didn't want Ben focusing on that part. That is the definition of hiding that part. I was trying to get him to understand. Mom was worried about how decisions might get made. She was worried about you too. I know. Did Ben? No. So you showed him everything except the sentence saying you should not be the only voice. Yes. Why? Her voice tightened. Because Ben never takes anything seriously until it's already a crisis. That is not permission to edit your mother. I know. Did you? Yes. No defense that time. Better. What did you want Ben to do? Agree to be involved. Why? So if Mom changed the directive, there was someone besides me. That was almost reasonable. Then why not send the full page? Rachel became quiet. Because I knew he'd say we should leave it alone. And I didn't think leaving it alone was safe. There it was. Her conclusion already existed. Everything afterward was recruitment. What did Elaine ask you to find out? Options? Did she ask you to replace me? No. Did she ask you to make yourself primary? No. Did she ask you to contact discharge planning Friday? A pause. No. That was new. Did she ask you to tell them she refused facility placement? She told me she didn't want to go. That is not what I asked. No. Did she ask you to bring the new form? Not specifically. I stood beside Elaine's desk. So you decided? Yes. Why the urgency? Rachel did not answer. Not the fall. You had already started before the fall. I told you. You told me about Dorothy? That's why? No. I kept my voice calm. Dorothy explains the fear. It doesn't explain why 3 weeks ago you decided your mother needed a new medical decision maker quickly enough that you were recruiting Ben before she had chosen anything. Rachel went silent. That silence was different from the others, not defensive, heavy. Rachel, she breathed out. There's something about Grandma I never told Mom. I sat down. What? I don't know if I should tell you. Then you probably should not have built a new healthcare plan around it. She said nothing. What happened? Rachel's voice lowered. You remember when Grandma kept asking to leave rehab? Yes. She asked me too. I know. No. Rachel's breathing changed. I mean, she asked me to take her. I waited. Take her where? Home. That wasn't your decision. I know. She couldn't walk safely. I know. What did you tell her? Rachel started crying. I told her to give therapy 1 more week. My anger cooled. Not disappeared. Changed. What happened that week? You know what happened. Dorothy fell. The transfer from bed to wheelchair, a nursing aide at one side, Dorothy impatient. Her weak leg buckled. She went down hard enough to fracture her wrist and bruise her hip. No lawsuit, no conspiracy. A bad fall inside a place designed to prevent bad falls. She lost confidence afterward. Therapy slowed, pneumonia came 3 weeks later. The possibility of returning to her apartment became smaller until nobody used the word temporary anymore. You think if you had taken her home, she wouldn't have fallen. I know that isn't rational. That is not the same as not believing it, Rachel cried quietly. She held my hand and said, You're the only one who listens to me. I closed my eyes. That sentence explained more than 14 years of family arguments. What did you say? That I couldn't take her without Mom agreeing. Reasonable. She said Mom was scared. Elaine was. She said everybody was scared. Yes. And she said being scared doesn't make them right. I could hear Dorothy in that. A stubborn woman who once drove from St. Louis to Kansas City at 77 because someone told her she was too old to make the trip alone. Rachel continued. I promised I'd talk to Mom that night. Did you? No. Why? Mom was exhausted. There it was. A smaller version of the same family habit. Someone else is tired. Someone else is frightened. Wait. Protect them from one more difficult conversation. I told myself I'd do it the next day. And Dorothy fell that morning. Yes. I understood then. Rachel had not spent 14 years simply afraid that temporary rehab could become permanent. She had spent 14 years believing she failed her grandmother at the exact moment Dorothy asked her to act. Every time Rachel told the story, she said everybody stopped asking what Dorothy wanted. But one of the people who stopped asking had been Rachel. She had heard Dorothy clearly. Then waited because acting felt too dangerous. Now Elaine was injured. Rehab had been mentioned. And Rachel had decided she would not be the person who waited again. That is why you came at 6 in the morning. Yes. Why you called discharge planning. Yes. Why you brought the directive. Yes. Why you cropped the note. A long pause. Yes. The midpoint of the whole thing was sitting right there. My daughter was not trying to gain control because she thought she knew better than everyone. Not exactly. She was trying to gain control because she had once lacked it when someone she loved begged her to help. She had turned an old guilt into a promise. Next time, I act. The problem was that next time belonged to Elaine, not Dorothy. And protecting my wife from losing her voice had become the reason Rachel was starting to speak over it. I asked one final question. Did your grandmother ever tell you she regretted staying in rehab? Rachel sniffed. What? After the fall, before the pneumonia, did she ever say she wished you had taken her home? Silence. I don't know. That is not the story you've been telling. I know. Then what did she actually say? Rachel took a long time. Finally, After the fall, she told me not to blame myself. I sat very still. For what? For listening to the therapist. That changed something. Not enough to erase Rachel's guilt, enough to show me it had grown larger than the evidence. Anything else? She said home might not have worked either. I closed my eyes. Does Elaine know that? No. There it was. For 14 years, Rachel had used Dorothy's story to warn her mother that rehabilitation could steal a life. She had left out the part where Dorothy herself admitted home might not have been possible, not because Rachel was inventing history, because guilt had edited it. The same way she cropped Elaine's yellow page, I ended the call without confronting her further. Then I drove back to the hospital with the blue notebook on the passenger seat. Elaine needed to see the full pattern. Not so she would choose me, not so she would reject Rachel, because until then, both of us had been arguing about who should be trusted to protect her. We had missed the more important question: who was willing to give her all the facts and let her make a choice none of us liked? I brought the blue notebook into room 412 and placed it on Elaine's tray table. She looked at it, then at me. You found it. Yes. And you called Rachel. Yes. Of course you did. I waited almost 40 minutes. My mistake. You're a changed man. I pulled the yellow page forward. Rachel told me about Dorothy. Elaine's expression shifted. What about Mom? The morning she fell at rehab. Elaine stopped joking. I told her what Rachel had told me. Dorothy asking Rachel to take her home. Rachel promising to speak with Elaine that evening. Rachel waiting because Elaine was exhausted. Dorothy falling the next morning. Then the part Rachel had apparently never told her mother. After the fall, Dorothy told Rachel not to blame herself for listening to the therapist. Elaine stared at me. She said that? Yes. She also said home might not have worked either. My wife looked toward the window. For several seconds she did not speak. Then, Rachel never told me that. I know. She told me Mom kept asking to go home right up until the pneumonia. Did she? Yes. That can also be true. Elaine looked back at the notebook. She's been carrying this for 14 years. Yes. Why didn't she tell me? I think because guilt edited the story. Elaine raised an eyebrow. That sounds like something you've been rehearsing. Only in the elevator. She did not smile. I touched number 6 on the page. You knew she was scared enough to start deciding before you. Yes. Then why ask her for help? Because knowing somebody's weakness doesn't erase their strengths. That was a very Elaine answer. I waited. She continued. Rachel remembers details. She asks questions. She doesn't get intimidated by doctors. All true. And when Mom was sick, Rachel noticed things the rest of us missed. The bruise. Not just the bruise. Elaine's voice softened. She noticed when Mom stopped eating breakfast. She noticed the aide kept putting her water on the weak side. She noticed her hearing aid battery had been dead for 3 days because everyone thought Mom was ignoring them. I remembered that. Rachel walked into Dorothy's room, said hello twice, then took the hearing aid from her grandmother's ear and replaced the battery from her purse. Dorothy looked at all of us and said, So you people have been talking behind my back in front of me. We laughed. Rachel did not. She was furious nobody had checked. She was good for Dorothy, I said. Yes. And Dorothy's situation hurt her. Yes. That still does not explain why you didn't come to me 3 weeks ago. Elaine looked at me. I already told you. Not all of it. She looked away. I knew my wife well enough to recognize the difference between refusing to answer and deciding whether the answer was worth the fight. Elaine, you remember when we gave up Mom's apartment? I felt something in my stomach. Yes. Do you remember when? About 6 weeks after the stroke. 41 days. That specificity told me she had not forgotten any of it. Her brother handled the lease. My brother signed the paperwork. Right. Whose idea was it? I did not answer, because I remembered. Not every word. Enough. Dorothy's apartment was $1,070 a month. She was paying that while also beginning to owe copays and uncovered expenses associated with skilled nursing. Her doctors could not say she would never return home. They could say returning alone was increasingly unlikely. Elaine's brother, Mark, had called one evening and asked what I thought. I gave him exactly the answer he asked for. Keeping an empty apartment indefinitely did not make financial sense. If Dorothy improved enough to leave the facility later, we could find another arrangement. At the time, it sounded practical. It still sounded practical. That was the problem. I told Mark we should stop paying for an apartment she might never use. You told him we were wasting money. I don't remember that wording. I do. I sat back. Elaine continued. I said Mom still thought she was going home. You said she might. No, I said she believed she was. That is different. Yes. Her eyes filled. That was what none of us understood. I said nothing. She was doing therapy because the apartment existed. I remembered Dorothy talking about the narrow hallway, her own coffee mug, the chair beside the window, small things. When Mark told her we had given notice, something changed. Elaine, she had severe deficits. I know. She was not going to live alone safely. I know. We could not keep paying. Tom, I stopped. She looked at me. You're doing it now. What? Explaining why the decision was reasonable before hearing what it felt like. That landed. I closed my mouth. Elaine continued more quietly. I am not saying we should have kept the apartment forever. All right. I'm saying Mom had not reached the decision yet. I looked at the floor. And we reached it for her. Yes. That was harder. Because it was true. What happened afterward? You know. I know the medical part. She stopped asking the therapist when she could go home. I looked at Elaine. She started asking where her things were. I remembered that too. The blue recliner went to Mark. Kitchen items were divided. Elaine took photographs, recipe cards, 2 lamps, and a ridiculous ceramic rooster Dorothy kept above the refrigerator. What did you tell her? That we were storing everything. Were we? Some. Not all. Elaine wiped one eye. She knew. I had not thought about that room in years. Dorothy sitting beside the window in her wheelchair, asking whether her neighbor had taken in her mail. We answered carefully. Then eventually nobody needed to, because the apartment no longer existed as a destination. After she died, Elaine said, Rachel and I were cleaning out the last boxes in our garage. I waited. She was angry with you. I remember plenty of people being angry that year. She said you always turned fear into logistics. That sounded like Rachel. What did you say? I told her that was one of the reasons I married you. That surprised me. Elaine smiled sadly. Your logistics paid bills, kept houses standing, got children to emergency rooms, made sure Mom's insurance appeals were filed on time. She looked at me. But I told her if I ever ended up in rehab, I didn't want you packing up my life while I was still trying to get back to it. I sat very still. You said that? Yes. About me? Yes. To Rachel? Yes. What exactly? Elaine took a breath. I said, if I ever go somewhere temporary, don't let your father make permanent decisions because temporary is taking too long. There it was. The promise beneath Rachel's behavior. More specific than what she had told me on the phone. More understandable too. You asked her to stop me. If you started deciding things I hadn't decided. That is different from changing your healthcare agent. Yes. Different from telling discharge planning you refused rehab before you said it. Yes. Different from cropping your notes. Yes. Elaine's voice hardened now. I am not defending that. Good. I am telling you where it came from. That was the midpoint I had been missing. Rachel had not chosen me at random as the person most likely to take away her mother's independence. Elaine had given her that role 14 years earlier. I had helped create the original fear with a decision I still believed had been financially sensible. Rachel had taken a boundary her mother gave her and turned it into authority her mother had never given. Both things were true. I sat beside the bed. I'm sorry. Elaine looked at me. For the apartment? Yes. You weren't the only one. I know. That is not an apology. Fair. I'm sorry I treated the question of whether Dorothy could afford to keep waiting as if it was the same as whether she was finished hoping to go home. Elaine looked down. Thank you, I continued. And I'm sorry I called Lakeview without telling you. She nodded. That one I'm still mad about. Understood. Good. Then she said, I owe you one. I waited. I should have told you I was reviewing the directive. Yes. I let being afraid you'd argue become a reason not to let you know there was an argument. That was exactly it. Thank you. We sat quietly. Then Elaine picked up the yellow page. I want to talk to Laura. The attorney? Yes. Today, if she can. What do you want it changed? I want to keep you as my agent. I did not expect the relief to be as physical as it was. I tried not to show it. Elaine noticed anyway. Don't look so pleased. I'm naturally handsome. You're naturally transparent. What about Rachel? Alternate. As before? Maybe. That surprised me. After this? She made bad decisions because she was scared. She also hid information. Yes. Cropped your note. Yes. Went beyond what you asked. Yes. Elaine looked at me. So have you. That settled that. What do you want different? Instructions. She tapped the page. Real ones. No selling the house or moving my belongings because I've been away a few weeks. Fine. No permanent placement without somebody getting a current medical assessment of whether home with support is realistic. Fine. If you are making decisions for me, Rachel gets the same medical information. I hesitated. Elaine saw it. That is the point. Fine. And if Rachel is making decisions, Ben gets the same information. I smiled. You really do distrust everybody equally. I've worked hard at it. Then she said something I was not ready for. And I want to ask about rehab. I looked at her. What? Short term. You said home. I know what I said. Did therapy change something? No. Then why? Elaine sighed. Because I'm afraid of the step, the practice step, her leg weakening, the therapist catching her. I had seen it. So had she. You want rehab. I want to know what 7 days would look like. I said nothing. She watched me. Aren't you going to say Lakeview? No? Why not? Because apparently I'm under review. That got the laugh I wanted. Then I said, do you want me in the meeting? Yes. Do you want Rachel? Elaine thought longer. Yes. That surprised me. Why? Because she needs to hear me choose something she doesn't like. There it was. Not punishment, correction. And you? Elaine asked. What about me? You need to hear me choose it without turning it into your victory. That was harder. Fair. Nora came in at 4 to check Elaine's medication. My wife looked at her. You caused a lot of trouble. Nora smiled. I've been told that before. I'm staying tonight. Good. And tomorrow I want everyone to stop whispering. Nora looked at me, then at Elaine. I can support that. When she left, I glanced toward the hallway where the whole thing had begun. A visitor log had made me think I was investigating what Rachel was doing to my wife. Now I understood the problem had started years before the first secret hospital visit. Elaine had been afraid of one thing I did well. Rachel had been haunted by one moment when she failed to act. I had mistaken planning for neutrality. Rachel had mistaken intervention for protection, and my wife, caught between us, had started using secrecy to preserve enough room to think. The next decision was going to be hers. The harder question was whether the people who claimed to love her could tolerate that once she chose something none of us would have chosen for her. The next morning, Elaine chose something none of us would have chosen for her. 7 days at Lakeview. Not permanent, not open-ended. 7 days of rehabilitation with a formal therapy review on day 5 and a discharge planning meeting that included Elaine before anybody talked about extending the stay. Laura Mendel joined us by video from her office. Not because Elaine lacked capacity, because Elaine wanted a lawyer who had no reason to care whether she went home that afternoon, next week, or never. Laura spoke with her alone first. I sat in the hallway. Rachel had not arrived yet. When Laura called me back in, Elaine was holding 3 handwritten pages. She's keeping you as primary healthcare agent, Laura said. I tried not to look relieved. Elaine noticed. Stop smiling. I'm not. You have the face, Laura continued. Rachel remains alternate for now. I nodded. The directive will also include more specific guidance. Elaine handed me the pages. Some language had been cleaned up. Some was still unmistakably hers. If she could communicate, she made her own decisions. If a short-term rehabilitation was recommended, the expected goals and review date were to be explained directly to her. No permanent long-term care placement should be considered solely because recovery took longer than first estimated. Before any permanent placement, the family should obtain a current assessment of whether home was feasible with reasonable support. If I was acting as her agent, Rachel should receive the same medical information I received. If Rachel was acting, Ben should receive it too. And then the sentence Elaine apparently cared about most. My absence from home for medical care is not permission to sell, empty, lease, remodel, or otherwise make permanent decisions about my home or belongings unless I have expressly authorized them or am permanently unable to return and such action becomes necessary. I read it twice. You added remodel. Elaine looked at me. I know you. I replaced one bathroom while you visited your sister. You removed a wall. It was not structural. Laura raised a hand. I am declining to mediate the bathroom. Fair. Then she explained that no document could predict every circumstance. Medical realities change. Capacity can change. Money can matter. Safety can become impossible to achieve at home. The directive would guide us. It would not turn the future into a contract with reality. Elaine understood. So did I. That was all I had ever wanted from a good plan. Not certainty. A clear starting point. At 10:15, Rachel arrived. She carried coffee for herself and Elaine. None for me. I assumed that was accidental and decided not to investigate. Elaine told her about Lakeview. Rachel's face changed immediately. You're going? For a week? You don't have to. I know. Home health can come to the house. I know. We can hire overnight help. I know. Rachel looked at me. I said nothing. That seemed to irritate her more than if I had argued. Did he talk you into this? Elaine's expression hardened. No. I'm just asking. And I'm answering. Rachel set the coffee down. What changed? The step. Mom, I almost went down. The therapist caught you. Exactly. You won't have steps at home. I also had trouble getting off the toilet yesterday. Rachel glanced at me. I still said nothing. Elaine continued. I want a week where I can work harder without worrying that your father is hovering behind me every time I stand up. I do not hover. Both women looked at me. Fine. Rachel pulled the visitor chair closer. What if they want another week? Then I listen. And if Dad thinks you should stay? I listen to him too. Rachel's jaw tightened. That's exactly what I'm worried about. Elaine looked at her. What? 1 week becomes 2 because it feels safer. Maybe. And then everybody starts talking about what happens after. Maybe. And then the house. There it was again. Elaine leaned back. Rachel. What? You are doing it. Doing what? Deciding what will happen before it happens. Rachel's face went pale. I'm trying to make sure you understand the risk. I understand it. No, Mom, you know the words. That sentence bothered me. It bothered Elaine more. I know the words. That's not what I meant. Then say what you meant. Rachel looked at me, then back at her mother. I mean, Dad has already thought about whether the house is too much. I stopped breathing for half a second. Elaine noticed. What? Rachel looked at me. You didn't tell her. Tell me what? I knew before Rachel pulled out her phone. Not exactly what she was going to show, but I knew there was something. She scrolled, then held the screen out to Elaine. The message was mine, dated June 18th, almost 3 months earlier, the day Elaine had tripped over the hose near the back garden. I remembered texting Rachel after she called to check on her mother. I had forgotten the exact wording. Now there it was. She says she's fine. Maybe she is. But that's the second fall this year. If this happens again, I'm going to have to push the one-level house idea, whether she likes it or not. I'm not waiting for a broken hip before we admit this place may be too much. Elaine read it, then read it again. I felt embarrassment first, then defensiveness. Neither helped. You said whether I like it or not. Yes. When were you planning to mention that? I had mentioned moving before. That is not what I asked. No. Rachel sat very still. Elaine handed me the phone. I did not need to read my own words again, but I did. At the time, the sentence had felt like concern, maybe even responsibility. Now I heard what Rachel had heard, a husband preparing to override his wife because he believed the safety argument would eventually make him right. I was angry when I wrote it. Elaine looked at me. At the hose? At you. That was worse. Why? Because you laughed off the fall. I tripped. You fell. She almost smiled. That is what I said to you 2 days ago. I know. I rubbed my forehead. I was scared. Elaine's expression softened slightly. Not enough. So you told Rachel? Yes. Not me. Yes. That pattern again. Everybody communicating around the person who actually owned the decision. I should have said it to you. Yes. And I should not have said whether you liked it or not. No. Rachel looked at me. For the first time since this started, there was no victory in her face. She looked sad. I didn't make that part up. I know. I need you to understand that. I do. It was important. If I turned Rachel's behavior into a story where she invented a controlling father from nothing, I would be doing exactly what I had accused her of doing with Dorothy, editing facts until guilt had a cleaner target. I had handed my daughter a sentence that confirmed her fear. Then the hospital fall arrived. Then I called Lakeview without telling Elaine. Rachel did not need much imagination to connect those points. The problem was what she did after connecting them. Elaine looked at her. Did you show me that message Friday morning? Rachel went quiet. I turned toward her. You showed it to her? Yes, Elaine frowned. I don't remember seeing the whole thing. Rachel's expression changed. What did you show her? I read it. All of it? Another pause. Most. There it was again. Incomplete information. What did you leave out? Elaine asked. Rachel looked at the phone. The first sentence, which was, she says she's fine. Maybe she is. That omission mattered a little, not enough. What else? Rachel swallowed. I didn't read the last sentence exactly. The last sentence was the worst one. I'm not waiting for a broken hip before we admit this place may be too much. What did you say instead? Rachel did not answer. Elaine's voice changed. Rachel. I said Dad had already decided another fall meant the house was over. I stared at her. The actual message did not say that. It said I would push the idea. Bad enough. It did not say I had decided to sell. You changed it. I summarized it. No. My voice remained low. You changed it. Rachel looked at me. You said whether she liked it or not. Yes. You said you weren't waiting. Yes. You said the house might be too much. Yes. Then what exactly did I change? The decision. Elaine answered before I could. Rachel turned toward her. Elaine's voice was quiet. He said he would push me. That's not better. It is different. Mom. He said he thought the house might be too much. He clearly did. Yes. Elaine's eyes filled. But you told me he had already decided it was over. Rachel became silent. That was the first time I saw her understand the distinction from the other side. When you are afraid, a possibility can feel dishonest unless you describe it as inevitable. That does not make the inevitability true. Rachel whispered, I wanted you to take it seriously. I did take it seriously. You kept saying maybe you'd go home and prove everyone wrong. I still might. You know what happened to Grandma when everyone kept saying maybe? Elaine closed her eyes. Your grandmother is dead. Rachel flinched. I know. No. Elaine looked directly at her. You keep bringing her into every decision I make as if I'm finishing her life for her. Rachel started crying. I don't want that. Then stop. For several seconds, nobody spoke. Then Elaine said something I had not expected. Your grandmother wanted to go home. I know. Rachel nodded. She was also afraid. Yes. She changed her mind sometimes. Rachel frowned. What? Elaine took a slow breath. 3 days before her fall, she told me she might need more time in rehab. Rachel stared at her. No. Yes. She told me she hated it there. She did. She told me she wanted her apartment. She did. Then why would she say that? Because people can want two things. Rachel stopped crying. Elaine continued. She wanted home. Pause. She also knew she could not get from the bed to the bathroom without help. That was something Rachel's version of Dorothy rarely contained. Not because she had lied, because she remembered the plea more strongly than the hesitation. What exactly did Grandma say? Rachel asked. Elaine looked toward the window. She said, maybe one more week if they stop treating me like I'm made of glass. Rachel stared at her mother. Why didn't you ever tell me that? Elaine gave a sad laugh. You never asked me what else she said. That sentence landed on all of us. Rachel had spent 14 years carrying the moment Dorothy asked her to take her home. Elaine had spent 14 years carrying the moment Dorothy admitted she might need more time. I had spent 14 years carrying the arithmetic that said an empty apartment made no sense. We had each preserved the piece that best explained our own decision. No wonder the family could not agree on what happened. That afternoon, Lakeview offered Elaine a bed. She accepted it herself. Rachel did not argue again. Not then. I packed Elaine's bag, 3 sweaters, comfortable pants, her own pillow because she claimed institutional pillows were designed by people hostile to necks. At 5:30, transport took her 7 minutes down Manchester Road to the same place she had spent 4 days fearing. I followed in my car. Rachel followed separately. At admission, the nurse asked who should receive updates. Elaine answered before either of us could. "My husband and my daughter," the nurse typed. "Who makes your decisions?" Elaine looked at her. "I do," the nurse smiled. "Good answer." Then she asked who should be contacted if Elaine could not. "My husband first." Rachel looked down. "Then Rachel." The nurse typed again. No whispering, no secret form, no visitor timing. Just my wife answering for herself. That should have felt like resolution. Instead, as I drove home that night, I kept thinking about my June text. Whether she likes it or not, Rachel had exaggerated what I meant, but she had not invented the part of me that believed fear could justify pressure. For days, I had been asking why my daughter felt entitled to decide for her mother. Now I had to ask a harder question. How much of that entitlement had she learned by watching me call it taking care of the family? I got part of the answer 2 days later. Elaine had been at Lakeview for 48 hours. The first day had gone badly enough to make everyone uncomfortable. She hated the mattress, hated the food, hated being told to ring before standing, hated the plastic cup they gave her for pills because, according to Elaine, I have owned hands since 1956. By the second morning, something changed. The therapist had her walk 140 feet with the walker, rest, then repeat it. She practiced getting in and out of a mock car. She managed 3 steps with a railing, slowly, painfully, but without anyone catching her. When she sat back down, she looked at me. "I'm staying until the review." I smiled. She pointed at me. "Not because you were right." I didn't say anything. "Your eyebrows did." I lowered them. At 11, a woman from a home health agency called Elaine's room. Her name was Melissa. She wanted to confirm a home safety assessment for the following Tuesday. Elaine looked at me. "You arranged that?" "No," Melissa heard her. "Your daughter did." "Rachel, when?" I asked. "Friday morning, before I called Lakeview, before Rachel knew whether Elaine would go to rehabilitation." Melissa explained that Rachel had requested an assessment of the downstairs bathroom, den, entry steps, and whether a temporary bed could be set up on the first floor. She had also asked about home physical therapy. That mattered. It did not erase what Rachel had done, but it weakened any story where her real goal was simply control. While she was warning Elaine that rehabilitation could become permanent, she was also trying to make home medically realistic. After we hung up, Elaine said, "She really was trying to get me home." "Yes." "You sound disappointed." "I am trying not to be." She almost smiled. I pulled the visitor log photograph from my phone. 5 visits, 5 carefully timed absences. Why did the secret visits continue if she was already working on a home plan? Elaine looked at the screen. "I told you. I didn't want arguments." "All 5 times?" She hesitated. That was new. "What?" "Friday morning was my idea." "I know. Friday afternoon too. Because of the Lakeview call." "Yes." "And Saturday?" Elaine looked down at her hands. "I told her we needed to stop doing it." I sat straighter. "When?" "Friday night." "What exactly did you say?" "She texted me after she got home. Do you still have it?" Elaine reached for her phone. Her movements were slower than normal, but her mind was not. She scrolled, then handed it to me. Friday, 7:52 p.m. "Rachel, how are you feeling?" Elaine. "Sore and tired of everyone having plans." Rachel. "I know, I'm sorry." Elaine. "I don't like you coming only when Tom is gone. Tomorrow we tell him I'm reviewing the directive." Rachel. "Maybe wait until you decide what you want. If he knows now, he'll think this is about trusting him." Elaine. "It partly is. He gets to know that." I looked at my wife. "That sounds like you." "It is me." The next message came from Rachel. "Please just give yourself 1 day without having to defend it." Elaine. "1 day. Then no more going around his schedule." Rachel. "Okay." I checked the visitor log. Saturday, 5:54 a.m., 8:39 p.m., both after Elaine had said no more. "You let her come anyway." "I did." "Why?" Saturday morning she said she was already nearby. "At 6? Elaine gave me a look. I did not say it was a good explanation. "What happened?" "She brought the directive again. The form naming her first." "Yes." "And Saturday night?" Elaine became quiet. "That was after therapy talked about rehab again." "Did you ask her?" "No." "So she came on her own?" "Yes." "When she knew I'd left?" "Yes." There it was. The first two secret visits had been something Elaine participated in. The later ones had become a pattern Rachel preserved, even after Elaine told her to stop. Why didn't you tell her to leave? Elaine looked irritated. Because she's my daughter. That has not prevented you from throwing people out before. You were replacing a garbage disposal in the living room. I needed more light. You needed boundaries. Fair. She sighed. I was scared, Tom. I know. And every time Rachel walked in, she had another way to make home sound possible. Home health assessment. Yes. Temporary bed. Yes. Bathroom setup. Yes. So she was helping. Yes. And frightening you at the same time. Elaine looked away. Yes. That was the part that bothered me. Rachel's care was not fake, neither was the pressure. Those two things had been living in the same room all week. At 1, Rachel arrived. Not secretly, broad daylight. While I was sitting beside Elaine, she brought turkey sandwiches from a deli Elaine liked. One without mustard, she said. Elaine looked inside. You remembered. You act like I'm new. For 10 minutes they talked normally. Rachel asked about therapy. Elaine complained about the mattress. Rachel said she could bring a foam topper. Elaine said no because she was only staying a few more days. Rachel accepted that without arguing. If you had walked into the room then, you would not have seen an antagonist. You would have seen a daughter taking care of her mother. That was important. I waited until we finished eating. Then I asked, do you remember what we told Dorothy about her apartment? Both women stopped. Rachel looked at me. What? When we cleared it. Elaine's face changed first. Tom, I've been thinking about something. Rachel put down her sandwich. What? Your grandmother kept asking where her things were. Rachel did not answer. I continued. We told her most of them were in storage. Elaine closed her eyes. Rachel stared at the floor. The truth was less clean. Some items were in storage, photographs. Clothes Elaine wanted to sort later, boxes of dishes, Dorothy's sewing machine. But a lot had already been donated, furniture sold, the apartment emptied. Her dining table went to a church family. The couch was hauled away because nobody wanted it. I remembered standing beside Dorothy's bed when she asked whether the couch was safe. I said yes. Not exactly a lie, I told myself then. Safe did not have to mean still hers. That thought embarrassed me now. Who told her the apartment was being kept? I asked. Rachel looked at her mother. Elaine said, we all did. Who asked Rachel to keep saying her things were in storage? Elaine did not answer. Rachel did. Mom. Elaine looked at her. I know. Rachel's voice was not accusing. That made it worse. Elaine rubbed her forehead. She was already upset. Dorothy? Yes. She could not change what we had done. Yes. So you decided telling her everything would only hurt her. Elaine's eyes filled. Yes, Rachel said quietly. You told me there was no point making Grandma grieve an apartment she couldn't go back to. Elaine covered her mouth. I remembered that sentence. Not because Elaine said it, because I had said almost the same thing to her. After Dorothy kept asking about her belongings, I told Elaine, what good does upsetting her do now? We can't recreate the apartment. Elaine had repeated the logic to Rachel. Rachel repeated the edited truth to Dorothy. The family chain was suddenly obvious. I looked at my daughter. You learned this somewhere? Rachel's eyes lifted. What? Deciding somebody can't change the outcome, so you control how much of the truth they get. She looked hurt, then angry. You think I learned all this from you? No, I glanced at Elaine. From us. Nobody spoke. Elaine finally said, that isn't fair to Rachel. It isn't blame. Sounds like it. I'm just trying to understand. Rachel stood and carried wrappers toward the trash. You always say that right before you explain everybody. I let that go. Then I said, when Dorothy asked whether her things were safe, did you know we had already donated some? Rachel stopped. Yes. How did that feel? Her shoulders lowered. Awful. Why did you do it? Because Mom told me not to upset her. Elaine looked down. And because Dad said there was no point telling Grandma something she couldn't fix. I remembered. Maybe not exact words. Close enough. Rachel turned back toward us. I hated it. Then why repeat it? I didn't think I was. Her eyes filled. That's the problem. She sat again. With Grandma, you two had already made the permanent decision. Yes, I said. With Mom, I was trying to stop that from happening. Elaine looked at her. By editing what Tom said. Rachel swallowed. Yes. By cropping my note? Yes. By coming after I asked you not to keep planning around his schedule? Yes. Rachel wiped her face. I thought the difference was I was protecting the person who still had a choice. Elaine's voice softened. But you kept changing the information I was using to make it. Rachel did not answer. That was the deeper truth. Rachel's motive had been almost the opposite of what I first feared. She did not want to take Elaine's autonomy. She was terrified Elaine would lose it. But the method she chose came directly from the family habit she claimed to be fighting. Withhold the alarming part. Strengthen the part you need someone to take seriously. Manage the timing. Protect the vulnerable person from a conversation you think will push them the wrong way. We had done versions of it to Dorothy. Rachel had watched, learned, then improved the system. I said, I'm sorry we put you in that position with your grandmother. Rachel looked at me. You don't have to. Yes, I interrupted gently. I do. Elaine nodded. So do I. Rachel started crying again. Not because we had forgiven her. We had not reached that question. Because for the first time, what she had done was connected to something older than one hospital stay. Elaine reached for her hand. Rachel let her take it. Then my phone buzzed. Ben. I ignored it. It buzzed again. A text. Dad, I found the whole message thread from Friday when Rachel asked me about Mom's directive. I didn't read it carefully at the time. I think you need to see it. I looked at Rachel. She noticed my face. What? Ben found your messages. Her hand pulled slightly away from Elaine's. What messages? Friday. Rachel went pale. Not angry, afraid. That was enough to make me stop before opening them. What is in there? She looked at her mother, then at me. I was scared. Elaine's grip tightened around her hand. That is not an answer. Rachel closed her eyes. No. For several days she had claimed every decision was about protecting Elaine's right to choose. Now, whatever Ben had found was making her look afraid of the words she herself had used while trying to do it. She looked at her mother, then at me. I was scared. Elaine's grip tightened around her hand. That is not an answer. Rachel closed her eyes. No. My phone buzzed again. Ben had sent 9 screenshots. I did not open them immediately. That surprised Rachel. What are you waiting for? For you to tell your mother what I'm about to read. She looked down. I don't remember every message. Then start with what you remember, Elaine said. Rachel, our daughter's face folded in on itself slightly, not crying yet, preparing to. Friday morning, before I came to the hospital, I texted Ben. I know that part, Elaine said. I told him PT had mentioned rehab, and I told him I was worried Dad would turn that into a placement. I let the word pass. What else? Rachel rubbed her thumb along the edge of the sandwich wrapper. I said you kept changing your mind depending on who you talked to. Elaine's expression changed. I changed my mind? You said you wanted home. Then you said maybe rehab. Then you wanted home again. That is called thinking. I know. Do you? Rachel looked at her. I didn't then. That was a better answer. I opened the first screenshot. Friday, 5:22 a.m. Rachel. Mom called. PT mentioned rehab, and she's terrified. I'm going before Dad gets there. Ben. What does Mom want? Rachel. Home, mostly. But Dad starts talking safety, and she says maybe rehab because she doesn't want to fight. Ben. Then ask her when Dad isn't there. Rachel. That's what I'm doing. I looked at Ben's reply and almost laughed at the irony. He had unknowingly helped create the secret visit. The next message came at 5:31. Ben. What are you asking me to do? Rachel. If Mom updates her medical POA, would you be willing to be backup after me? Ben. Did she say she wants that? Rachel. She wants to make sure Dad can't turn temporary rehab into permanent placement. Ben. Not what I asked. I stopped. Elaine looked at Rachel. Your brother asked the right question. Yes. What did you answer? Rachel knew. She did not need the screenshot. I said I knew what you meant. I looked down. There it was. Her exact message. She asked me to protect her from Dad making permanent decisions while she's vulnerable. I know what she meant. Ben. Maybe you should ask her what she means. Rachel. I have. Ben. Then why are you asking me instead of her? No answer for 12 minutes. At 5:48. Because every time Dad walks into the room she starts making his case for him. Elaine stared at the screen. I made his case. Rachel shook her head. That's how it felt. Because I was considering rehab. Yes. So if I agreed with him on one point, you thought I wasn't speaking for myself. Rachel whispered, "Yes." That was the first truly dangerous part of the whole pattern. Not secret paperwork, not a cropped photograph. The belief underneath them. Rachel had decided that choices matching my opinion were evidence of my influence, while choices matching hers were evidence Elaine was finally speaking freely. Nobody wins that system except the person judging which answers count. I opened the next screenshot. Friday, 6:38. Rachel. Mom says she wants home. I told discharge planning no facility referral without checking with us. Ben. Us? Rachel. Mom and me. Ben. Does Dad know? Rachel. No, that's the point. Elaine looked at her daughter. You said that? Yes. Why was keeping Tom out the point? Because I thought once he knew, he would start building an argument. I would have, probably. That was not the same as having no right to know. The next screenshot was later. 10:54 a.m. Rachel. Dad called Lakeview. I knew he would. Ben. Did Mom agree? Rachel. No, she's upset. I'm taking the new directive this afternoon. Ben. Why would POA matter if Mom can decide now? Rachel. It doesn't right now. It matters if meds make her foggy or something happens and Dad becomes the only voice. Ben. Then add instructions. Why replace Dad? Rachel. Because instructions don't argue back when he decides something is safest. I read that sentence twice. Rachel started crying. I was angry. I know, I said. Elaine did not speak. Another message. Ben. Mom's note literally says not to make you the only voice either. Rachel. Please don't start with that. Then, Rachel sent the cropped photograph. Ben. Where's the rest? Rachel. Nothing important. Just Mom worrying I overreact because of Grandma. Nothing important. Elaine looked at Rachel. That was my instruction. I know. You didn't just crop a sentence you disliked. I know. You cropped the part that told Ben what I wanted from you. Yes. Rachel's voice broke. I know. The room went quiet. I could hear a cart rolling down the hallway. Somebody laughing near the nurse's station. Ordinary sounds while one family finally stopped editing itself. I opened the next screenshot. Saturday, 6:11 a.m. Ben. Thought Mom said no more sneaking visits? Rachel. She said one more day. Elaine shook her head. I said Friday was the last day. Rachel nodded. I know. Ben. Then why are you there? Rachel. Because she's scared again. Dad keeps making rehab sound reasonable. Ben. Maybe she thinks it is reasonable. Rachel. You aren't here. Ben. Neither am I pretending to know what she thinks. I looked up. Ben was more involved than you made it sound. Rachel gave a miserable laugh. He was mostly telling me to stop. That sounds like him. The next message came Saturday afternoon. Rachel. She still won't sign. Ben. Then stop asking. Rachel. I'm not forcing her. Ben. If she keeps saying no, what do you call continuing to bring the form? There was no answer for almost 3 hours. Then at 8:07 p.m., I call it making sure fear of upsetting Dad isn't deciding for her. That was the message Rachel had been afraid I would see. Not because it contained a hidden financial motive, not because she planned to put Elaine somewhere herself, because it exposed the point where protection became permission to disregard an answer. Elaine said, I told you no. Yes. More than once. Yes. And you kept coming back because you thought my no might really belong to Tom. Rachel covered her face. Yes. Elaine released her hand. Not dramatically. She simply put both hands in her lap. Rachel noticed. So did I. I kept reading. Sunday morning. Ben. What do you actually want here? Mom home or you as POA? Rachel. Mom home. Ben. Then why keep pushing the POA? Rachel. Because home doesn't solve what happens next time. There it was. Next time. Rachel had stopped solving this hospital stay. She was trying to prevent every future version of Dorothy's story before it could exist. Ben replied, Next time is Mom's problem too. Rachel. Unless next time she can't speak. Ben. Then follow what she wrote. Rachel. Dad interprets everything through safety. Ben. And you interpret everything through Grandma. No reply. I lowered the phone. That was enough. Nobody needed all 9 screenshots. The truth was already in the room. Rachel looked at Elaine. I'm sorry. Elaine's eyes were wet. I believe you. That surprised Rachel. It doesn't fix it. No. Elaine's voice remained calm. But I believe you. Rachel whispered, I thought I was helping. I believe that too. That hurt her more. I recognized it. Sometimes the most painful accountability is being believed about your good intention while still being held responsible for what you did with it. Elaine looked at me. Call Laura. Now? Yes. What do you want? I know now. Rachel's face changed. Elaine saw it. This is not punishment. I know. No, you don't. Elaine reached for her hand again. I love you. Rachel started crying harder. But I don't want you making medical decisions for me if you can't accept an answer you think came from someone else. Rachel lowered her head. I understand. Elaine looked at me. And before you look proud, you are staying primary because I know your problem. My problem? You argue. I've heard rumors. You gather information without telling me. Fair. You think safety wins ties. I hesitated. Yes. But when somebody tells you no clearly enough, you usually get mad and then eventually understand the word. High praise. It is today. Rachel laughed through her tears. Elaine continued. I want Ben as first alternate. Rachel nodded. And Rachel after him. I looked at her. You still want her listed? Yes. Why? Because making one bad pattern visible is not the same as making someone useless. That was my wife. Quietly ruthless about distinctions. Rachel wiped her face. I don't deserve that. Elaine's expression sharpened. Do not decide what I should do with you while I am telling you to stop deciding for me. Even I laughed at that. Rachel did too, small, embarrassed, real. Laura joined by video at 3:30. Elaine spoke first. She did not let me explain the family. She did not let Rachel explain Dorothy. She told Laura what she wanted. Me as a primary, Ben first alternate, Rachel second. Specific written instructions. All three of us to receive the same medical information if she lacked capacity and a major long-term care decision was being considered. Laura suggested language requiring consultation, not unanimous consent, because emergencies do not always wait for family meetings. Elaine agreed. Then she added one sentence herself. If my expressed preference conflicts with what a family member thinks I would have wanted, my expressed preference wins while I have capacity. Laura said, that is already how this works. Elaine looked at me. I raised both hands. I have learned not to say it. Laura laughed. The documents would be finalized after Elaine returned home, when there was no immediate discharge pressure. For now, the existing directive remained valid. Nothing magical changed because of a video call. That felt right. Afterward, Rachel and I walked to the Lakeview parking lot. She stopped beside her SUV. You hate me? No. You should be angrier. I am plenty angry, she nodded. I really thought Mom was agreeing with you because she was scared of arguing. Sometimes she does that. Rachel looked at me. Exactly. And sometimes she agrees with me because I'm right. That sounded painful for you to say. It was. She almost smiled. Then I said, the problem is neither of us gets to decide which is which by whether we like her answer. Rachel looked toward the building. I know. Do you? I'm trying. Good enough. Then she said, I'm sorry I told Mom you had decided about the house. Thank you. You hadn't. No. You had thought about it. Yes. You probably will again. Yes. She looked at me. Tell her. I will. And don't call places first. I almost argued, then stopped. Fair. She opened her car door. Before getting in, she said, Nora was right. About what? Not letting Mom go home that night. I thought about it. Not because Elaine was medically incapable of discharge, because if we had taken her home Friday, every unresolved fear would have come with us. Secret forms, edited messages, my unspoken plans, Rachel's old guilt, Elaine's distrust, all under one roof with a walker and a bruised pelvis. Yes, I said. She was. On day 5, Elaine's therapy review showed enough progress that everyone agreed home on day 7 was realistic. Everyone included Elaine. That was the part we finally understood how to say correctly. Home health was scheduled. A second handrail was installed before she returned. The downstairs den received a temporary bed, despite my objection that a den remained a den even when a mattress entered it. Elaine overruled me. I survived. There were still consequences waiting when she got home. Not medical ones, family ones. Because proving what Rachel had done did not answer whether Elaine could trust her the next time fear arrived before facts. And it did not answer whether I could become the husband Elaine trusted with uncertainty instead of merely the man she trusted to solve problems after the decision had already been made. I got my chance to find out 2 nights after Elaine came home. For the first 48 hours, I behaved so carefully that she accused me of acting suspicious. I did not ask whether she needed help every time she stood. I did not place the walker closer unless she asked. I did not tell her the home health therapist had recommended someone stay within hearing distance when she showered. I simply happened to spend 45 minutes reorganizing the linen closet outside the bathroom. When Elaine opened the door, she found me holding a stack of towels I had already folded twice. "You're hovering. I'm improving storage. In a closet you have ignored since 2007. It was overdue." She pointed toward the kitchen. "Go away." I went. That counted as progress. Rachel came by that afternoon with groceries. She knocked. That was unusual. For 20 years, our children had treated the side door as a family entrance requiring no formalities. I opened it. She held up 2 bags. "Mom asked for oranges and yogurt." "Come in." "Is she awake?" "Yes." "Did she say she wanted company?" I looked at her. Rachel noticed. "I'm trying." "I know." Elaine was in the den doing leg exercises. Rachel sat with her. No advice, no questions about whether the pain medication was making her foggy. No suggestion that Lakeview had discharged too early. When Elaine stood to use the walker, Rachel's hands moved automatically toward her, then stopped. Elaine noticed that too. "Thank you." Rachel nodded. Watching them was strange. A week earlier, I would have called Rachel attentive. Now every small act had history attached to it. That was the cost of damaged trust. Normal behavior became evidence until enough time passed for it to become normal again. The home health physical therapist came at 4. Her name was Carla Jimenez. She walked through the house with Elaine. Not with me. That distinction mattered. Carla looked at the bathroom, the den, the kitchen, the 2 steps down to the garage, the front entry. She recommended another grab bar in the shower and a raised toilet seat for a few weeks. I wrote both down. Elaine saw me. "You're allowed to make that list." "I appreciate the permit." Carla had Elaine walk from the den to the kitchen, turn, sit, stand again, and return. "No problem." Then she practiced the 2 steps to the garage. Elaine managed them. Slowly. Carla said, "Good." I thought the word too. I did not say it first. That counted as more progress. By 8, Rachel had gone home. Elaine and I ate tomato soup and grilled cheese in the den because carrying plates while using a walker seemed like unnecessary theater. At 9:30, she said she was going to the bathroom. I looked at her. She looked at me. Neither spoke. Then she said, "You can stay seated." "I am seated." "Your whole body just stood up emotionally." I almost laughed. "Go." She went. I heard the walker, the bathroom door, water running. Then something hit the wall. Not hard, enough. I was out of the chair before I thought. "Elaine, I'm fine." That sentence has probably caused more injuries than stairs. I reached the hallway. She was standing outside the bathroom with one hand against the wall. The walker had rolled 6 inches away. Her face was pale. "What happened?" "I got dizzy." "Sit." "Tom, sit." She sat on the hallway bench. I put the walker in front of her. "Did you fall?" "No." "Hit your head?" "No." "Chest pain?" "No." "Short of breath?" "No." "When did you take the pain pill?" 8. "What did you eat?" "Dinner." "How much water?" She stared at me. "I am not a boiler." "No." "Boilers are easier." Her face remained pale. That ended the joke. I checked her blood pressure with the home cuff. 98/61, lower than usual. I called the home health nurse line. That was reasonable. Then I made the mistake. While I waited for the nurse to call back, I said, "If this happens again tonight, you're going back." Elaine looked at me. "Back where? Lakeview or the hospital?" "Which?" "I don't know yet." "Then don't say it like you decided." "I said if it happens again." "You said I'm going back." "Because I'm not going to find you on the floor at 2 in the morning." Her face changed. Not angry. Closed. The home health nurse called. She asked the same questions I had. Suggested water. Slow position changes. Recheck blood pressure in 20 minutes. If Elaine fainted, developed chest pain, severe shortness of breath, new weakness, confusion, or another concerning symptom, call emergency services. Otherwise, notify her physician in the morning. Reasonable, manageable, not a reason to return to Lakeview immediately. I gave Elaine water. Her pressure came up slightly. Then my phone rang. "Rachel." I looked at Elaine. "Did you call her?" "No." Rachel said, "Mom texted me." "Of course. What happened?" She got lightheaded. Did she fall? No. I'm coming, Elaine heard through the phone. No, she called. Rachel went quiet. I said, she says no. Dad, what if she says no? That felt good. For about 30 seconds. Then I said, but if her pressure drops again, I'm taking her back. Elaine closed her eyes. Rachel said, no. Now I was irritated. What? You're not taking her anywhere unless she wants to go, or there's an emergency. I understand the concept. Doesn't sound like it. Elaine raised one hand. Both of you stop. Neither of us did quickly enough. I said, I'm the one here. Rachel answered, exactly. Elaine stood. Too fast. She swayed. I reached for her. So did the empty air where Rachel would have been if she were in the room. Elaine grabbed the walker. Then she shouted, stop deciding! I had heard my wife angry. I had heard her furious at insurance companies, electricians, our son for driving through an ice storm, and me for putting a cast iron skillet in the dishwasher once. This sounded different. Afraid. We stopped. Elaine sat again, then pointed toward my phone. Put Rachel on speaker. I did. Rachel, I'm here. Do not come, okay? Tom, yes. Do not take me anywhere unless I agree or I actually need emergency care. I wanted to qualify it. The urge was physical. What if, no? There it was. Clear enough. I swallowed. All right. Elaine leaned back against the wall, then said, this is exactly what I was afraid of. That hurt. Rachel whispered, Mom, both of you. Silence. One scare. Elaine's voice shook. One dizzy spell, and you two are already fighting over who gets to decide what happens to me. Neither of us had an answer. Rachel said, I'm sorry. I said it too. Elaine closed her eyes. Then Rachel said something I did not expect. Dad, do you remember what you told me after Grandma's apartment was gone? I frowned. What? Elaine opened her eyes. Rachel continued. We were in your garage. I looked toward the back of the house. Our old garage. Dorothy's boxes had been stacked along one wall. The ceramic rooster, 2 lamps, recipe tins, clothes Elaine had not been ready to sort. I don't remember. I do. Her voice had changed, not accusing, almost embarrassed. Grandma was furious about the apartment. Yes. I told you I thought we should have waited. Something came back. Not words yet. The scene. Rachel standing beside Dorothy's blue lamp. 29 years old, angry, tired. She had spent most of that year driving between work, her grandmother, her own young family, and our house. What did I say? Rachel was quiet. Then, you said, sometimes taking care of somebody means making the decision they can't make while they're scared. I stared at the wall. Elaine did too. I wanted to say I would never phrase it that way. Then I remembered enough to know I probably had. Rachel continued. I said Grandma could make decisions. You did? Yes. What did I say? Her answer came slowly. You said, not every decision, not when fear is doing the deciding. The hallway went quiet. I remembered now. Not every word, the belief. I had been defending the apartment decision. Dorothy wanted home. Elaine wanted time. Rachel wanted us to keep the apartment. Mark wanted to stop paying. I had converted all of it into a principle I could live with. Responsible people make hard choices. Scared people sometimes need help seeing reality. Safety matters more than anger. I had not ordered Rachel to manipulate anyone. I had done something subtler. I had taught a young woman already carrying too much responsibility that love could justify deciding when another person's fear made their choice less trustworthy. Rachel said, You told me Grandma would be angry because she couldn't see the whole picture. Elaine whispered, Tom. I sat down beside her. I'm sorry. Rachel continued through the speaker. I know you weren't teaching me how to lie. No. You were trying to make me feel better. Probably. I felt horrible because I thought we had given up on Grandma. I remember. And you told me somebody had to be willing to make the hard call. There it was, the phrase I used at work, the phrase I used raising children, the phrase I used whenever indecision frightened me. Make the hard call. Rachel started crying. I think I spent 14 years trying to be the person you said was strong enough to make it. I closed my eyes. That was the lowest point. Not discovering that my daughter had cropped Elaine's note, not learning about the secret form, not seeing 5 visits on a hospital log. Understanding that, when Rachel decided her mother's no might not really count because fear or my influence had shaped it, she was using a rule I had once handed her. Poorly. Too broadly, but recognizably mine. Elaine looked at me. I expected anger. What I saw was grief. You told her that? Yes. After Mom? Yes. She looked toward my phone. Rachel? Yes. Your father was wrong. Rachel laughed through tears. I did too. Small, painful, necessary, Elaine continued. And I was wrong when I used you to tell your grandmother things I didn't have the courage to tell her myself. Rachel said nothing. I made you carry the softened version. Yes. I taught you that too. The blame no longer had a clean direction. That did not erase responsibility. It made it accurate. Elaine's blood pressure returned close to normal. We called no ambulance. Rachel stayed home. The next morning, Elaine's physician reduced one medication temporarily and told her dehydration plus pain medicine had probably contributed to the dizziness. No return to Lakeview. No crisis, just a scare, and a test we had failed before recovering. That afternoon, I went into the garage looking for a screwdriver and saw Dorothy's ceramic rooster on the top shelf. Elaine had kept it all these years. Red comb, yellow body, one chipped wing, ugliest thing in the room. I carried it inside. Elaine was at the kitchen table. She looked at it. Oh, Lord. Your mother had terrible taste. She would haunt you for that. I said it between us, then said, I don't want to be the person who makes the hard call because everyone else is scared. Elaine studied me. What do you want? To know when the call is actually mine. That was harder than it sounded. What if it is? Then I'll make it. And if it isn't? I looked at her. I need to learn to tolerate watching you choose something I wouldn't. She nodded. Rachel, too. Yes. Elaine touched the chipped ceramic wing. And me. I frowned. You? I need to stop avoiding conversations until one of you makes them for me. That was fair. We sat there quietly. Then Elaine said, I don't trust either of you completely when you're scared. It hurt. I let it. Okay. I trust you more than I did last week. That was something. Rachel? Elaine looked at the rooster. I love her. Not an answer. Maybe the only honest one available. For the first time, I understood what still had to be protected. Not the house, not the old directive, not my place as husband. Elaine's right to remain a person whose choices still counted, even when the rest of us were frightened by them. And if we wanted her to trust us again, neither Rachel nor I could prove ourselves by winning the next decision. We would have to prove ourselves by letting it belong to her. We would have to prove ourselves by letting it belong to her. Elaine tested that idea the following Sunday. Not with anything dramatic. She wanted to drive. Carla, the home health therapist, had cleared her to ride in a car, but had not yet evaluated whether she should be behind the wheel herself. Elaine's pelvic fracture did not affect her right leg, but getting in and out still hurt, and one of her pain medications carried a warning about driving. So when she announced over breakfast that she intended to go to the grocery store, I said, I'll take you. She looked at me. I said I want to drive. You're taking hydrocodone. I haven't taken one since yesterday afternoon. That doesn't automatically mean I stopped. Elaine waited. This was apparently an examination. What do you want to do? I asked. Call Carla. Good. And if she says wait, I wait. That should have been easy. It was not. Part of me had already reached the conclusion and wanted to save everybody the telephone call. Elaine called. Carla said not yet. She wanted Elaine off the stronger pain medication for at least 24 hours, comfortable getting in and out independently, and assessed during the next therapy visit. Elaine frowned, then said, Fine. No argument, no accusation. She handed me the keys. I drove. It was almost irritating how smoothly the system worked when I remembered whose decision it was. At Schnucks, Elaine used one of the electric carts for 10 minutes, hated it, and switched to walking with the store cart. She bought oranges, yogurt, coffee, and a box of cookies she claimed were for visitors. We had no visitors scheduled. I knew better than to investigate. On the way home, she said, I want everyone here Tuesday. Everyone? You, Rachel, Ben. Ben's in Nashville. He has video. What is Tuesday? The day I stop having 3 separate versions of my medical wishes. I glanced at her. You want a family meeting? I want paperwork. That sounded more like me. She caught the expression. Do not enjoy this. I'm trying not to. Laura Mendel came to the house Tuesday afternoon. Elaine insisted on that. Not Zoom, not a hospital hallway, our kitchen table, her house, her chair, her rules. Ben joined on a laptop positioned between the sugar bowl and a ceramic rooster. Nobody had yet convinced Elaine to return to the garage. Rachel arrived 5 minutes early. She knocked again. Elaine called from the kitchen. "You have a key." Rachel opened the door. "I wasn't sure. You're still my daughter." The words seemed to hit her. She put her purse down and came to the table. Laura spread out the revised advance directive, a separate living will section, and a one-page summary Elaine had asked her to prepare in plain English. Then Elaine put the old unsigned form Rachel had brought to the hospital beside them. Rachel looked at it. "I brought that." "Yes," Elaine said. "I know. Do you still have another copy?" "On my laptop. Delete it when we're finished." Rachel nodded. Laura began with the legal part. Elaine remained capable. The new directive did not transfer current decision-making to anyone. It named me only for a future situation in which Elaine could not make or communicate her own medical decisions. Ben would be first alternate, Rachel second. Then Laura looked directly at each of us. An agent's job is to represent Elaine's preferences, not replace them with what the agent personally believes is safer, wiser, cheaper, easier, or more emotionally comfortable. I looked at Rachel. Rachel looked at me. Elaine noticed both. Apparently, I hired a lawyer to insult two people at once. Laura smiled. "Efficient billing," she continued. If Elaine lacked capacity temporarily, the goal was still to involve her as much as possible. If capacity returned, the agent's authority stopped being relevant. No family member could decide that Elaine's answer didn't count merely because she was frightened, angry, stubborn, or making a choice somebody else considered risky. Actual decision-making capacity was a clinical and legal question, not a family vote. That last part needed to be said. Then we reached long-term care. Elaine had written the wording herself and let Laura clean up only enough to make it usable. Her preference was home whenever reasonably feasible with available supports. Short-term rehabilitation was acceptable when it had defined goals and a review process. She did not want permanent placement based solely on the fact that recovery had taken longer than expected. If permanent placement was being considered, and circumstances allowed, she wanted a current professional assessment of whether home could work with reasonable assistance. She wanted all three of us given the same basic information. No edited versions, no summaries designed to persuade. Ben's voice came through the laptop. "Can we put that in bold?" Laura said. "No. Worth asking." Elaine reached for the yellow legal page from her notebook. "I also want this kept with the directive." Laura looked at it. "The handwritten notes?" "Yes. They aren't legally necessary." "I don't care." She looked first at me. "Number 4, I read it aloud. "Tom should hear what doctors actually say, not only the worst-case version." Elaine nodded. Then she looked at Rachel. "Number 6. Rachel did not reach for the page. She knew it. Elaine waited. Rachel finally said, "Rachel gets too scared about what happened to Mom and starts deciding before I do. Do not make her the only voice either." Ben's image froze momentarily on the laptop. When the connection caught up, he said, "That's the sentence I should have gotten Friday." Rachel closed her eyes. "Yes." No argument. Elaine said, "I want something else said out loud." She looked at our daughter. "Why did you crop it?" Rachel breathed slowly. "Because I wanted Ben to support changing the directive." "Why did you want that?" "Because I thought Dad would eventually push you into something permanent." I almost interrupted. "Didn't," Elaine continued. "Did I tell you I wanted Tom removed? No. Did I tell you I wanted you first? No. Did I tell discharge planning I refused rehab before you told them that? No. Did I ask you to keep visiting after I said we needed to stop planning around Tom's schedule? No." Rachel's voice was getting quieter. Elaine did not raise hers. "Then, whose choices were those?" "Mine." "And why?" Rachel looked at Dorothy's ceramic rooster sitting near the laptop. "Because Grandma asked me to help her go home and I waited." Nobody spoke. I told myself I would never wait again when somebody was losing control of their own life. Elaine's eyes filled. Rachel continued. "And Dad had already said things that made me think he would decide safety mattered more." I nodded. "That part is true." She looked at me. "So when Mom hesitated, I thought she was scared of fighting with you." "Sometimes I was," Elaine said. Rachel looked surprised. "That doesn't mean every answer I gave that matched his opinion belonged to him." "I know." "And when I said no to changing the directive?" Rachel swallowed. "You said no." "But?" I thought maybe you were trying not to hurt Dad. Elaine leaned back. That is the part I need you to remember. Rachel nodded. No matter how kind your reason sounds, once you decide my no means something other than no because you understand me better than I do, you have stopped protecting my voice. Rachel wiped her face. Yes. Laura gave her a moment. Then Elaine turned to me. My turn. I almost objected to the phrase. Didn't. What did you text Rachel in June? I knew she had the message printed. She did not need it. After your second fall, I said if it happened again, I would push the one-level house idea, whether you liked it or not. And I said I wasn't waiting for a broken hip before we admitted the house might be too much. Had I agreed the house was too much? No. Had I asked you to research selling? No. Did you tell me before telling Rachel? No. Why? I looked at my hands. Because I was scared, and because talking to Rachel let me say what I was thinking without having to argue with you about it. There it was. My version of the secret visit, not entering a hospital at 6 in the morning, just taking a concern about my wife to somebody other than my wife, because the conversation was easier. Elaine asked, "What did you tell Rachel 14 years ago after Mom's apartment was gone?" I hated that one. That sometimes taking care of somebody means making a decision they can't make while they're scared. And was Mom incapable of making decisions? Not all of them. That is not an answer. No, I looked at Rachel. I turned my opinion about one decision into a rule. She nodded. And I used it. Yes. I'm sorry. So am I. That was the truth exposed as far as I was concerned. No hidden beneficiary. No scheme to take a house. No daughter waiting for her mother to become helpless so she could seize control. Something more ordinary had happened. And because it was ordinary, I think it was more dangerous. We had built a family where the person who worried hardest often got rewarded with the most influence. Elaine avoided conflict. I converted uncertainty into plans. Rachel converted guilt into vigilance. Ben stayed far enough away from tension that everyone mistook distance for neutrality. Then one fall put all those habits inside a hospital room. The visitor log had only made them visible. Laura passed the final documents to Elaine. Do you want to sign today? Yes. You're sure? Elaine looked at her. I have spent more than a week making everybody ask me that. I'm sure. She signed. 2 independent witnesses signed. Laura notarized the appropriate documents. Copies would go to Elaine's primary care doctor, the hospital system, Lakeview for its records, and our children. Then, Elaine took the old unsigned form Rachel had brought into room 412. She tore it in half. Not dramatically. Once across the middle, then again because the paper was thick. Rachel watched. Elaine held the pieces toward her. Trash. Rachel took them. That was the only punishment in the room. Not being removed from the family, not losing every future role, simply watching her mother dispose of the decision Rachel had tried to move too quickly. Before Laura left, Elaine added one final instruction that had nothing to do with medical law. If any of you think I should move out of this house, you tell me, Ben said through the laptop. Not each other? Correct. What if we all think it? Then you can all tell me. I smiled. Elaine pointed at me. You too? Yes. No realtor? Yes. No one-level house brochures hidden in the garage? I have not printed any. Do not. Yes. Rachel said, Can I ask one thing? Elaine waited. If you fall again, are we allowed to be scared? My wife's expression softened. Yes. Are we allowed to say we think something should change? Yes. Even if you hate hearing it? Yes. Rachel looked down. Then I think I can do that. Elaine reached across the table. So do that. No whispering, no edited notes, no arriving at dawn because the inconvenient person had gone home. Just a difficult opinion said in front of the person whose life it concerned. After everyone left, I stood at the sink washing coffee cups. Elaine was behind me with her walker. You realize this does not mean I'm staying in this house forever. I turned. What? She smiled slightly. I knew you'd look like that. You just spent 10 days making us promise not to move you. I made you promise not to decide when. That sounds suspiciously lawyerly. I've had a lot of exposure lately. She walked toward the den, then stopped. The stairs are still stupid. I stared at her. You want to move? I did not say that. Elaine, she laughed. No planning. I closed my mouth. She pointed at me. Good. Then she disappeared into the den, leaving me beside the sink with the most difficult assignment I had been given in years. Wait until she finished deciding. For once, I intended to do exactly that. I lasted 9 days. That was when Elaine found me at the kitchen table with a legal pad, a tape measure, and 3 rough sketches of ways we might move the washer and dryer out of the basement. She looked at the papers, then at me. "What are you doing?" "Nothing. You have dimensions. I measured things. That is not nothing in your religion." I put down the pencil. The basement stairs bothered me now, not because Elaine was incapable of using them. By then she could manage the main staircase with a cane and one hand on the railing. But the laundry was downstairs, and the fall that started everything had happened while she was carrying towels back up. I had spent several evenings thinking about a first-floor laundry closet. There was unused space beside the powder room. A contractor could probably open the wall, move plumbing, add electrical service, and Elaine touched the legal pad. Did I ask for this? No. Did you call anybody? I hesitated. Her eyes narrowed. One contractor. Tom? I did not ask for an estimate. What did you ask? Whether the plumbing route was possible. That is how you flirt with an estimate. I almost defended myself, then remembered room 412, Lakeview, the visitor log, the unsigned directive, my June text. I folded the paper. I did it again. Yes. I'm sorry. Elaine pulled out the chair across from me. Do you know what the strange part is? What? I've been thinking about moving the laundry too. I stared at her. For how long? About 3 days. Why didn't you tell me? She smiled. I wanted to finish deciding what I thought before you had 3 contractors in the driveway. Fair. What do you want? Not a closet by the powder room. Why? Because then every dinner guest will hear the spin cycle. That is not how insulation works. See? I stopped. Elaine laughed. Then she opened the legal pad again. What about the pantry wall? That was how the first real house decision after her fall happened. Not because I announced the safest plan, not because Rachel arrived with research. Elaine started the conversation. I supplied measurements after she asked. We met with 2 contractors together. The third never made it past the phone because Elaine disliked the way he kept answering my questions while looking at me instead of her. She told him so. He did not get the job. By April, we had a stacked washer and dryer in a widened first-floor pantry, a new grab bar in the downstairs shower, and one less reason for either of us to carry laundry on the basement steps. We did not sell the house. We did not promise never to. That difference mattered. Elaine's fracture healed well. By March, the walker was gone. By April, the cane stayed in the coat closet more often than it went with us. In May, she returned to the elementary school library for 2 mornings a month. The first day, I asked whether she wanted me to drive her. She said no. I looked at her. She looked at me. Then I said, "Have a good time." She returned 3 hours later carrying 2 children's books, a bag of donated paperbacks, and enough satisfaction to make the point without saying anything. Rachel's consequences lasted longer. Not punishment, consequences. When Elaine's revised directive was finalized, Ben remained first alternate. Rachel stayed second. Nobody changed it back after a few weeks because feelings had softened. Elaine said trust should not be confused with forgetting. Rachel accepted that, at least verbally. I think accepting it emotionally took longer. For the first month, she asked permission for everything. Can I bring dinner? Yes. Can I call the therapist? No, your mother can. Can I ask what the therapist said? Ask your mother. Then she would. Directly. That word changed our family more than any legal document did. If Rachel wanted to know what Elaine thought, she asked Elaine. If I worried about something, I tried to ask my wife before asking our daughter. If Ben received a family question that clearly belonged to someone else, he became annoyingly enthusiastic about saying, "Call them." He enjoyed his new moral authority far too much. Rachel also began seeing a counselor. She told us that herself. No one asked for details. The only thing she volunteered was that she had never realized how much of her adult life had been organized around preventing emergencies she believed other people would mishandle. Dorothy, Michael, her own son when he was a teenager. Elaine's cancer scare 11 years earlier that turned out to be benign. My mild heart rhythm problem. Every event became another reason Rachel needed to stay alert. If I wasn't worrying, she told me once, I felt like I was missing something. I understood that. My version involved lists and tools. Hers involved people. One Sunday in June, Elaine asked Rachel to drive her to the cemetery. Dorothy was buried in a family plot near Afton. I did not go. Not because I was excluded, because they needed one conversation without me becoming part of it. When they came back, Rachel looked exhausted. Elaine looked peaceful. Neither told me much. Later that night, Elaine said she apologized to her grandmother. For what? For not taking her home. What did you say? That Mom never gave a 29-year-old granddaughter authority to override everybody and drive a stroke patient out of rehab. I smiled. Romantic. She also apologized for waiting to tell me what Mom asked. That was different. Did you forgive her? Elaine took a long time. I told her there was nothing to forgive about not rescuing Mom. And the rest? I told her she needs to stop turning regret into instructions for other people. That sounded more useful than forgiveness. By August, Rachel could joke about the visitor log. Not much. Once. She arrived while Elaine and I were eating breakfast and said, "I came at a time Dad is home. Please record my compliance." Elaine pointed toward the kitchen counter. "Sign in?" Rachel laughed. I did too. Then nobody mentioned it again. The nurse who showed me that log stayed in my mind longer than she probably expected. In September, I took Elaine back to the hospital for an orthopedic follow-up. We passed the fourth-floor nurse's station afterward. Nora Patel was working. I recognized her. She recognized Elaine first. "You're walking?" Elaine said, "Apparently your plan worked." Nora looked confused. "Oh, my plan? You told him not to take me home?" Nora smiled. "I asked him to wait." "Same difference to my husband." I shook her hand. "Thank you." She looked slightly embarrassed. "I didn't do much." "You showed me the log." "I was worried about the pattern." "You didn't tell me what the pattern meant." "No." That was the important part. She had shown me something inconsistent and let the family reveal the rest. I had spent much of my life believing competence meant knowing what to do next. Sometimes, it meant knowing when you did not know enough yet. On the way home, Elaine asked whether I regretted keeping her that extra night. No. Even knowing I ended up choosing Lakeview, yes. Why? Because I needed another night too. She looked at me. For what? To stop treating your discharge like a maintenance shutdown. She laughed so hard she had to hold her side. I wish you had learned that 40 years ago. I was busy. I noticed. That fall, Carol Mason's house 2 doors down went on the market. The neighbor who had moved to assisted living after her second fall. Elaine and I attended the open house after the new owners renovated it. Not because we wanted to buy it, because we were nosy. It had a first-floor bedroom, wide shower, no basement laundry. Elaine walked through slowly, then said, "This layout makes more sense than ours." I did not answer. She looked at me. "Nothing? You have not asked me a question. You're learning." Painfully. A month later, she brought home a brochure for a 1-level villa development in Crestwood. She put it on the table herself. I looked at it, then at her. Is this a request for analysis? It is permission to look. There is apparently a distinction. We looked. Did not buy. The units were nice. The monthly fee annoyed both of us. One had a kitchen Elaine liked, another had a garage I liked. We came home and decided our house was still ours for a while. Maybe someday that would change. Maybe a future version of us would choose differently. The important part was that neither of us needed to decide today in order to feel safe. By the next winter, Rachel had a key to the house again without asking whether that meant anything symbolic. It meant she was our daughter and sometimes fed the cat when we were gone. That was enough. Elaine never removed her from the directive entirely. She also never moved her back ahead of Ben. Rachel did not ask. One evening, almost a year after the fall, I found the old visitor badge from room 412 in a drawer, my name printed beneath the hospital logo. The adhesive had dried. I remembered that hallway, Nora's quiet voice. The monitor turned toward me. 5 visits that seemed, at first, to prove my daughter was doing something to my wife. They proved something more complicated. Rachel had hidden facts. Elaine had hidden fears. I had hidden plans inside the harmless phrase, gathering information. All 3 of us had believed, at different times, that love gave us a little extra authority over what someone else needed to know. The badge went into the trash. I did not need a souvenir. Elaine was in the living room reading. Rachel had called earlier and spoken to her directly. Ben had called me directly. Nobody was arriving at dawn. Nobody was cropping notes. Nobody was whispering about who could handle what. It was quieter than the family we had before, not because there were fewer disagreements, because the disagreements finally belonged to the people actually having them. If someone you loved tried to protect your spouse's independence by quietly taking control of the very choices she was supposed to protect, how much trust would you give back once you understood the fear behind it? If family mysteries about experience, hidden motives, and quiet justice stay with you, you're always welcome at the Watchful Father.